Chapter 855. It was 6 days later when they returned to the deep space. The dragon-seeking starship was like a black ghost drifting quietly in the depths of the darkness. This starship was requested by Ding Ming, and the Board of Patriarchs did not dare to not give it to him. Now, only Ding Ming and Little White were in the starship's command room. The autopilot route had been set long ago. It would fly downwards from the Byron sector to avoid the ships of the Frogman Kingdom and the Norse Empire. Although it would take a big detour, it was also for safety reasons. The dragon-seeking starship took about 3 months to make this detour. It was not until they were close to the western region of the Norse Empire that Ding Ming took out his wrist device from his satchel and activated the Divine Light positioning chip in it. As long as Little Rascal's position was not in the Federation or the Devourer sector, they would find him sooner or later. In fact, it did not take too long. After about 10 minutes, the communication console automatically glowed green and established contact. A remote real-time projection was connected. What was projected by the ray was naturally the reflection of the person. The person was dressed in a straight uniform and looked very handsome. Not bad. This starship of the Steel Main Empire is different from the ones we usually see. Where did you get it? Every time he saw Xing's cynical expression, Ding Ming felt warm in his heart. What did you eat this time? I feel like you become more handsome. Xing smiled mysteriously. I'm not afraid to tell you that I've been eating rattan vegetables for the past 2 years. Ding Ming was curious. Aren't they wild vegetables? Do they have any special effects? Xing smiled proudly. After eating rattan vegetables, you'll become more handsome. After that, the two of them laughed at the same time. Okay, I'm not going to talk nonsense with you. Xing stopped smiling. You ran really far. I guess you went to the Steel Main Empire. No wonder no one could find you for the past 2 years. Ding Ming asked, Where are you now? Xing was pleased with himself again. Don't worry about that. I'll pick you up. Please pay attention to your ship's reconnaissance radar. The main control panel had automatically projected a hologram. The image displayed the starry sky on the left wing of the dragon-seeking spaceship. In the dark and deep vacuum, there was a faint airflow. The airflow surged and gathered, suddenly transforming into a spaceship. This was the Divine Arrow spaceship with an exquisite and sharp design, shaped like a trident. The Divine Arrow spaceship was already very different from before. In the past, its entire body was a holy ice blue color, but now it was half transparent and half pure white. It was obvious that pure divine light energy was attached to it. Ding Ming exclaimed in surprise. Has the transformation been completed? Xing sighed. It took a year just to recharge the ship, and it took almost 3 years to complete the modifications. Now, this reconnaissance ship can be considered to have truly taken shape. Let me tell you something, but don't feel bad. The energy crystals left behind by the general have all been used up. Well, Ding Ming was dumbfounded. I was hoping to go back to the base and enrich myself, but I was defeated by you guys. Xing waved his hand and said, Hurry up and send it over. We'll talk when we get back to the base. The ghost-eyed demon I had already appeared in the middle of the command hall. The Divine Light teleportation formation was about to take shape. Ding Ming thought for a moment and set the dragon-seeking spaceship's automatic return route on the main control panel. This spaceship was actually very useful, but it was better to let it return to the Byron system just to be safe. Ding Ming and Xing sent it over, and the Divine Arrow spaceship quickly opened a space-time rift to perform a short and medium-distance teleportation. The distance of 5 light-years was completed in just 10 minutes. It seemed that the energy crystals used to recharge the spaceship were not wasted. This speed was really fast. In the blink of an eye, the base of planet V12 appeared in front of them. Now, the base had already built a 5-story terminal building, which was made of pure white and shiny platinum metal. It cannot be said that it was not luxurious. There was also a rest area built outside the spaceport in the form of villas. Coupled with the colorful branches and vines of the poison hazard planet, it had a beautiful charm of Flying Star City. Xiaobai could not help but be attracted by the scenery in front of her. Wow, it's so beautiful. Xi and Jia had already opened the connecting cabin. Is he not afraid of poison? Ding Ming smiled. Xiaobai is one of us. Not only is he not afraid of poison, he's also an expert in metal poison. Xi and Jia gave a thumbs up. Awesome. At this moment, there were already people cheering on the tarmac. It's Big Brother Ding Ming. Big Brother Ding Ming is back. Big Brother Ding Ming is back. This group of people was Jin Tai, Qing Feng, Sweet Fruit, Gu Yitzi, Old Cat, and the others. Xi and Jia explained. The construction of the base in the past 2 years can't be done without their hard work. The captain also found a lot of materials and sent them over. Du Maoyong and Iran also contributed. These platinum metals were all obtained by Iran's company through Long Feiyu and the others. Listening to Xi and Jia's introduction, Ding Ming was very touched. His friends had never forgotten him. Even when he was not around, they did their best to help him. Big Brother Ding Ming, you're finally back. Jin Tai and Old Cat came over. Ding Ming noticed that these people's bodies had become much stronger. He sensed that even Jin Tai was a combat master-level origin ability user. The divine light energy was really a blessing to everyone. Sweet Fruit looked at Little White curiously and said, "Hello." Xiaobai was a little embarrassed. "Hello," Sweet Fruit asked, "why is your skin so white? You're different from the other Iron Mane people." Xiaobai did not know how to answer. Sweet Fruit praised, "It's very beautiful." This was probably the first time someone had praised his skin color. Xiaobai scratched his head in embarrassment. "Really?" Sweet Fruit smiled sweetly. "Xiaobai, right? Welcome to our base. There are a lot of unpopular metal scraps in the warehouse. Do you want to try them? I'll take you there." Okay. Xiaobai was like Ding Ming. When he heard that there was food, he could not refuse and even smiled foolishly. Seeing Sweet Fruit and Gu Yitzi happily take Xiaobai to the villa area, Ding Ming could not help but smile. Perhaps this place was more suitable for Xiaobai. Ding Ming and Xi and Jia walked side by side to the terminal. Xi and Jia blinked and smiled. "Do you feel different this time?" Ding Ming was curious. "What's different?" Xi and Jia smiled and said, "All your wives are gone. Your happy life is gone." Ding Ming laughed. "At least I have them. What about you? Are you going to be single for 10,000 years? It was not until now that Ding Ming learned that Dai, Yi, and Su Xia had been staying on planet TT-12. They were overseeing the Chu family and protecting Chu Shaoqing, Old Yu, and the others. Lan Bing and Ming, Yin had gone to the Fertile Chalk system to look for him 2 years ago. Eisendel had been running between Planet V12 and the Federation to deliver supplies to the base. The others had also been busy with the construction of the base. In short, the base on Planet V12 had begun to operate in an orderly manner. Only the Iron Lady had been diligently cultivating in the anti-gravity room. In the terminal's first-floor hall, Ding Ming sensed Little Rascal, Xiao AI, and Junling from afar. What surprised him was that the three of them all had a War God level energy index. Xiao AI's aura was the strongest, with an energy index of no less than 80 billion. Her foundation was extremely deep. It seemed that the energy crystal of Star General Rong had raised everyone's energy to an unprecedented level. The force led by Ding Ming had only truly taken shape today. Perhaps not many people in the Federal Empire knew about it. If there were really people who knew about it, then they definitely couldn't underestimate this group of people. In addition to this V-12 base and the Divine Aerospace ship, this was a powerful force that could rival an army group. Little Rascal came up to Ding Ming. This time, there was no teasing or surprise in his eyes when he looked at him. Instead, there was a trace of surprise and even some reverence. "Ding Ming, you..." Little Rascal seemed to be shocked and could not speak. Xiao AI also showed a shocked expression. "Ding Ming, you have the aura of the Agi planet on you. What happened to you? And this aura seems to be from the top powerhouses of the Agi planet. I keep feeling that it's a little familiar." Ding Ming smiled. "I'm afraid you won't believe me if I tell you, but I came into contact with the Agi civilization." Little Rascal and Xiao AI were stunned. The Agi civilization was an existence that even the Mao civilization had to look up to. Could it be that there were still remnants of the Agi civilization in this main star system? Ding Ming quickly spread out his telekinesis vision and established a telepathic link, transmitting his experience from planet TT-12 to the Steel Main Nation to everyone. Of course, he hid the part about the silent entropy land. It wasn't that he didn't trust Little Rascal and the others, but the matter of the heaven-defying king was too important. Just as Sakas had said, the news of the heaven-defying king's death couldn't be leaked even after 30,000 years. If word got out, it would cause a huge upheaval in the universe. Peripheral star systems like the Sacred Glory main star system would probably be reduced to nothing in the whirlpool of great upheaval. No one would survive. Not a single survivor meant that not only humans, but everything would be annihilated. Scumbag. The iron-willed girl suddenly blurted out such a sentence. Ding Ming was stunned. How am I a scumbag? Ding Ming glared at him. You really have a lot of romantic affairs. You're still fooling around in outer space. Fortunately, the sisters-in-law are not here. If that Miss Guan were to know, you would become a punching bag. Ding Ming could only droop his eyelids and not answer. Little Rascal showed a sad expression. I didn't expect that Miss Guan would not survive in the end. It's even more unfortunate that the doctor also died. What a pity. Her soul was saved by the doctor and the others. She did not expect that to be the last time they saw each other. There was no chance for them to meet again. Xiao AI also seemed to be sighing. This hidden front is actually so powerful. It seems that the current ruler of the Nordic Empire is a fake, but why couldn't I see it? Xian Jie smiled bitterly. You're not the only one who couldn't see it. Even I was fooled for 2 years. I couldn't see any clues from the television. If it wasn't for Ding Ming's personal experience, I would have thought that it was still ruler Wen Yang himself. Now it seems that there are still many loopholes. Ding Ming immediately asked, did the situation in the Norse Empire change greatly in the past 2 years? Xian Jie shook his head. Nothing changed. Ding Ming was stunned. Logically speaking, the Nordic Empire should have changed greatly with the return of a fake ruler. Could something have happened during this time? Chapter 856. The situation in the Norse Empire was just as Xian Jie had said. 2 years ago, Chancellor Wen Yang had returned to the Norse capital and announced that he had eradicated the evil underground forces. He had also listed Ding Ming and the others as high-risk fugitives. Since then, the upper echelons of the Norse Empire, which centered around Chancellor Wen Yang, had not made any moves. Xian just suddenly said, if there's any change, it's not in the Norse Empire, but in the front lines of the Fertile Chalk system. He turned on his wristwatch and displayed the map of the Fertile Chalk system. Over the past 2 years, the number of battles in the Fertile Chalk system has gradually decreased. The front lines of the Norse Empire are retreating bit by bit. Ding Ming also saw that Xian Jie's map only had 2 colors. One was green, which represented the territory occupied by the Norse Empire's army. The other was red, which represented the territory controlled by the Frogmen. The Norse Empire's army was indeed retreating bit by bit to the southernmost part of the system. Ding Ming said, that's strange. If the number of battles is decreasing, why is the army still retreating? Little Rascal said, the upper echelon's explanation is that the front lines are shrinking to reduce casualties and consumption. It's a way to reduce the burden on the Norse Empire. This move has received the support of many Norse citizens. Ding Ming fell in a deep thought. Xian Jie said, we can understand it as the Norse Empire giving up their advantage. But the strange thing is that the Frogmen are also retreating. They have retreated to the northernmost part of the Fertile Chalk system. There is now a large empty space in the center of the Fertile Chalk system. Blue Eyes sent back news that the outskirts of the vortex have extended to the 2 wings. It's now a paradise for adventurers. Ding Ming shook his head decisively. No, based on my understanding of the hidden front, it's impossible for them to shrink. What is this fake chancellor planning? Little Rascal obviously understood him. He would definitely settle the score between Miss Guan and the academician with the head of the hidden front. Ding Ming, I'm afraid it will be very difficult for you to go to the Norse Empire now. At least, you can't go there with your original identity. Xing understood and immediately added, That's right. I know that your combat power is strong, but in the past, you've only dealt with those strong origin ability users. If you want to find out the real boss behind the hidden front, you're not facing an individual, but a powerful national machine. Forgive me for being blunt, but even now, I'm proficient in top-notch red guest technology, but I still don't dare to rashly invade the central government of the Empire. Do you understand? Ding Ming naturally understood that if he wanted to deal with the boss of the Hidden Front this time, he could not just head straight to the capital of planet Norlin alone and go on a killing spree. Perhaps from the perspective of individual martial arts strength, no one would be able to stop him, but if he were to act rashly like this, he might not be able to find a culprit. What was the motive of the fake head of state? What was his plan? You may not know all of this. The most important point is that the power of the state apparatus is not what you see on the surface. The most complicated thing is the conspiracy and the sinister nature of the human heart. Ding Ming himself was deeply aware of this point. Was he strong enough before? The answer was yes, but didn't he still suffer a great setback on Rainforest Planet 1? Openly stirring up trouble was not a good strategy. He had to learn from the hidden front and become a venomous snake hiding in the shadows to bite people. Only then would it be effective. Xing, you want me to sneak in quietly? Ding Ming asked. Xing said, something like that, and you'll have to change your identity and become a completely different person. Ding Ming frowned. Why? Little Rascal sighed. Actually, in these past few years, quite a few people have already noticed our existence. Ding Ming was shocked. Have we been exposed? Little Rascal's expression was serious. You can't say that we've been exposed. Xing has collected various signs and information that indicate that quite a few people know that we're a hidden power connected to Xinguang technology. They're also hiding in the shadows and observing the situation. You know this as well. The demons have been watching us all this time. Ding Ming nodded. He now knew that the other party was from the demonic sky race. Little Rascal said, You're our leader. Because you're basically the spokesperson for Xinguang technology, a lot of people have been keeping a close eye on you. Their goal is to use you to dig us out. I'm guessing that this is why they haven't taken any action yet. For example, the Black Handprint and the Hidden Front are definitely aware of our existence. Ding Ming said, Indeed. During this trip to the Fertile Chalk system, I've renewed my understanding of the Fifth Lord and the Boss. They're extremely dangerous and frightening people. I'm not afraid of them in terms of martial prowess, but when it comes to scheming and plotting, I'm not on the same level as them. Little Rascal said, It's good that you think this way. That's why it's necessary for you to reduce the number of times you appear in public. This is also why Xing suggested that you change your identity. Actually, I don't mind telling you that the construction of this base is inextricably linked to the Starbao Corporation. Ding Ming was surprised again. Oh, the Starbao Corporation was able to find us? Xing's expression was gloomy. You've seen it for yourself. The base is mostly built from rare platinum metals. But based on the wealth of your friends, Du Imo, Liang Iran, and the others, how could they provide such perfect supplies and equipment? At the beginning of the construction, there was a mysterious small company that provided us with the materials. After a lot of investigation, I discovered that there was someone else behind it. Ding Ming asked suspiciously who? Xing said expressionlessly, The transit string of the Starbao Corporation. Ding Ming's eyes widened. He had offended the Starbao Corporation to such an extent. Was the transit string out of its mind? Why would it take the initiative to help him? No, there was definitely something wrong here. Xing said in a low voice, The transit string has been in constant contact with me. She hopes to meet with you. Ding Ming was even more curious now. Why would she want to see me? Xing analyzed. The fact that the transit string was able to contact me proves one thing. She has the ability to dig up our whereabouts at any time. It's just that we can't find you, so she can't contact you. Ding Ming sighed. With the Starbao Corporation's powerful financial resources, she can indeed do this. Xing glanced at him. You're clearly the Starbao Corporation's enemy, but from her actions, she hasn't done anything to us. Instead, she's helping us. With this woman's shrewdness, she wouldn't do anything stupid. And if she really wants to deal with us, we won't necessarily lose, but we'll have to hide and hide. Little Rascal said, I think there are only two possibilities why the transit string is looking for you. It's either a collaboration or a conspiracy. Actually, I'm leaning towards the collaboration. From a certain point of view, our goal is the same as the Starbow Corporation's, which is to find more energy. So, we shouldn't become enemies with the Starbow Corporation. Ding Meng smiled. Little Rascal, I don't remember you being like this in the past. Taking revenge on the spot is your style. Little Rascal also smiled. Ding Meng, we also have to make long-term plans for the future. Besides, there are no temporary enemies in this world, only eternal benefits. The Starbow Corporation is a very large platform. We can use the transit string's power to seize resources. Ding Meng nodded. He also had a very important mission on his shoulders this time, and that was to transport as much energy as possible back to the land of entropy. Little Rascal said, right now, it's up to you whether you want to return to the Empire or the Federation first. Ding Meng naturally leaned towards returning to the Federation. He really did want to see what the transit string was up to. Now that he had a clear plan of action, it could only be summed up in one word. Energy. I don't care if you want to cooperate with the transit string or play tricks. You might make a small profit, but I definitely won't lose out. However, there were too many things that needed to be dealt with in the Empire. The real culprit of teacher, Zhao, you had not been executed yet. Xu Xiaoqing's current predicament, the deaths of so many people along the way, and the matter of Guanlin and the doctor all needed to be dealt with personally. I'll go to the Empire first. Ding Meng made his choice. Xi and Jie immediately walked out. I'll go to the spaceship first to make some arrangements and pick someone up on the way. After he left, Ding Meng took the initiative to ask, Little Rascal, Little AI, you know about the AIG civilization, right? When he asked this, the two girls immediately reacted. Ding Meng must have had a fortuitous encounter this time. Little Rascal smiled and said, Ding Meng, your aura now has the characteristics of the AIG people. Ding Meng could only nod. I've come into contact with some information in this area. Little AI sighed. Our Mao Xing Pearl Kingdom is a loyal follower of the AIG civilization. When I was young, I heard the general mention the AIG civilization. It was the most powerful country in our universe. Their leader was called the Heavenly King, and he was a top expert of his generation. However, in the disaster 30,000 years ago, the Mao Xing Pearl Kingdom was destroyed, and we lost contact with the AIG civilization. However, if we have information about the AIG people and get their help, we have the confidence to deal with the demons. Ding Meng laughed inwardly. I'm now half an AIG person. Little Rascal, I went to the Fertile Chalk system this time and also obtained the Divine Light Cloak. Now, I don't rely too much on Divine Light technology. You and Little AI have better equipment. Our base is very important. You have to guard this place against strong enemies. Little Rascal was very smart and immediately understood. Ding Meng had definitely learned something from the AIG civilization. With the AIG people's martial arts techniques, Divine Light Technology's equipment was indeed not that important. Ding Meng continued, It's just that I didn't expect Chancellor Wenyang to also be a Divine Light warrior. I remember the Hidden Front boss hinting that the Divine Light warriors are divided into factions, and there are more than just our forces. Little Rascal showed a thoughtful expression. What he said makes sense. Ding Meng curiously asked, Why is that? Little Rascal explained, When we escaped from Mao Star, other than me, Little AI, General Rongwang and his warriors, there were other members of the royal family who chose another escape route. It's just that I don't know who survived. Little AI continued, Her Highness is a member of the royal family and a loyal supporter of AIG Star. However, the other members of the royal family have different views. If those people survived, then it's not surprising that Chancellor Wenyang has the Divine Light Cloak. However, I'm afraid that the princess's bracers have fallen into the hands of some people with ulterior motives. Ding Ming, when you go to the Norse Empire this time, if you can find the real Chancellor Wenyang, you might as well investigate this matter. Chapter 857. The divine light wristband that little rascal carried was a special Mao weapon made by the royal family. Its power and function were far more powerful than ordinary divine light equipment. Ding Ming had been investigating this clue for a long time, but he and Lan Bing did not find any clues in the Shenghao group. However, the divine light cape of Chancellor Wenyang became a new clue. The reason was simple. Other than Little Rascal and Little Love, there must be other Mao people or spirits. Ding Ming sighed to himself. There were still a lot of things to investigate on this trip, big and small. However, after running around for such a long time, Ding Ming finally returned to the base. He decided to take a good rest first. In fact, he mainly wanted to see what the base looked like after the modification. The villa area far away from the spaceport was obviously a multifunctional residence that was copied from the buildings in Flying Star City. Ding Ming randomly chose a villa and entered it. The house was very modern. The interior was built in the form of streamers, and subspace technology was added. The living room, bedroom, dining room, and training hall were all condensed into a small 3-story villa. After walking around for a while, Ding Ming had an idea. This residence was definitely specially built for him. The reason was very simple. Among all the rooms, the dining room took up the largest area and was decorated the most luxuriously. It even had 2 AI butlers. "Welcome back, Mr. Ding Ming. We are at your service. Would you like to order anything?" Ding Ming waved his hand casually. "Of course. Currently, we can provide 1143 dishes, 98 drinks, and 56 alcohol. This is the menu. Please take a look." The AI butlers had already projected a light screen above the huge round table. Countless words and pictures were densely arranged on it. Ding Ming did not even bother to look at them. One of each. With his current strength, eating was not to replenish his energy, but to satisfy his appetite. Therefore, this afternoon, Ding Ming was eating and drinking alone in the restaurant. This was simply the greatest enjoyment for him. It had been a long time since he had been so happy. However, the good times didn't last long. When the sky was slightly dark, Xi and Jia walked in with a frown. "I was wondering why the smell was so strong. You brat, you're actually eating alone." He didn't hold back and casually grabbed a can of Ding Ming's favorite calming tea. He raised his head and poured it into his mouth. Now that Xi and Jia had been cleansed by the divine light energy, his strength had been promoted to the warlord level. One could imagine how heaven-defying it was for a data master's index to soar to the standard of a warlord. Therefore, Xi and Jia's eating speed was not necessarily slow. He was like a vacuum cleaner. Ding Ming's face was filled with displeasure. Xi and Jia couldn't help but laugh. "I'm just thinking that stealing your food is more serious than stealing your wife." Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. "It's rare for me to come back to the base. Shouldn't you let me eat something?" Xi and Jia smiled and said, "You've been eating for 5 or 6 hours. That should be enough. Eating or your wife? Which one is more important to you?" Ding Ming grabbed an entire roasted chicken and stuffed it into his mouth. For now, eating something is more important. Hee hee, you're really promising." A cold female voice suddenly rang out at the entrance of the dining hall. Ding Ming looked up and was immediately amused. Lan Bing walked in with a cold expression on her face. Behind Lan Bing was Meng Yan. Both of them were wearing tight black armor, which gave them a valiant temperament. It also accentuated their graceful figures, causing one's imagination to run wild. However, both of them were somewhat unkempt. Clearly, they had just teleported back from the harsh environment of the fertile chalk star system. When he saw that Lan Bing's expression was not good, Ding Ming did not dare to make a fuss. He also did not dare to eat the roasted chicken. Just because he did not eat did not mean that the others would not eat. Facing the table full of dishes, Lan Bing and Meng Yan sat down and grabbed the food with their bare hands. They did not care about their image as beautiful women. Only then did Xi and Jia turn on his wristwatch and bring up a screen. Everyone is here. It's time to explain the things you need to pay attention to. Who is this? Ding Ming was curious. He noticed that the screen was an introduction to the Norse Empire citizenship. Ancestral Gragon. Gender, male. Age, 66. Ancestral home, Guangfu Village, planet TA-45, Norse Empire. CEO of Baiyun International Trading Group. Looking at the virtual image and pictures, this ancestral Gragon did not look like a young man. His face was angular, his skin was slightly dark and rough, and his eyebrows showed that he had been through a lot. He was wearing the most standard black suit and white shirt. His stomach was slightly bulging. It was obvious that he was a serious businessman. XINGS said, "This person is you." Me? Ding Ming was shocked. This ancestral Gragon is not simple. XINGS sighed. This ancestral Gragon is not simple. Planet TA-45 is a border planet in the Empire's northeast star region, close to the Big Dipper. This person is an orphan and has been suffering since he was young. He followed the exploration team everywhere. When he was 24 years old, he went out on his own and contracted a second-hand transport ship, earning money by reselling the residue of rare metals. It was not until he was 33 years old that he formed his own transport fleet and established a connection with the Hubbles family on the Big Dipper. He smuggled large amounts of firearms and energy, and after 10 years of accumulating wealth, he came ashore and established the Baiyun Group. The Baiyun Group means to contract the outer space transportation of the Big Dipper. Ding Ming said in surprise, to be able to freely enter and exit planet Beidou and sell large amounts of materials. This guy is indeed very capable. XINGS continued to explain. It was only in the last 3 years that he established a connection with the Chuangyu of the Empire. He took over a small part of the Chuangyu outsourced transportation business. This year, he changed his style again. Through his connection with the Chuangyu, he ran for a senator in the Empire's parliament. Although he is not an official senator, he is still a deputy in the Ministry of Commerce. In 15 days, he will be taking office. Ding Ming seemed to have understood something. You want me to pretend to be him? XINGS corrected him. Not pretend to be him. You are him. This is the fastest way for you to enter the capital and sneak into the parliament. Ding Ming asked curiously, what about him? XINGS said, that is not something you need to worry about. Miss Liang and Waterdrop are already on their way to deal with him. Ding Ming smiled bitterly. Waterdrop liked to devour things at every turn. It and Liang, you were indeed the best at this kind of thing. XINGS changed the image. This time, it was a woman's information. Sophie. Gender, female. Age, 36. Interstellar refugee. Place of residence, Nanling City, Beidou. From the mirror image, this Sophie did not look like a young woman. She looked very charming, with a pair of red phoenix eyes that were very flirtatious. She was wearing a tight-fitting galactic dress, but this dress looked very awkward. In layman's terms, this Sophie gave off a very strong aura of a prostitute. Who is this person? Ding Ming asked. XINGS said, this Sophie is your wife. She was originally a bar girl in Nanling City. She met Ancestral Gragon many years ago in Nanling City. Later on, she hooked up with Ancestral Gragon. The two of them only got married 5 years ago. They did not have any children after marriage. Ding Ming laughed. Looks like Ancestral Gragon's taste in wives is not very good. XINGS laughed too. You better take back what you said. Ding Ming was puzzled. Why? Lan Bing suddenly raised her head and said coldly, because this Sophie is me. I'm your wife. Do you understand now, Chairman Zhu? Ding Ming was once again amused, but he understood XINGS' reasoning. XINGS wanted him and Lan Bing to infiltrate the Empire and the Parliament in place of Ancestral Gragon and his wife. They had to get close to Chancellor Wenyang and other higher-ups to investigate the boss of the Hidden Front. XINGS explained, I've repeatedly filtered through over 3,000 people. In the end, I've come to the conclusion that these two identities are the most suitable for you. When you arrive at the Empire, you'll have to temporarily cut off contact with the base. Whether or not the operation will be successful will depend on you. Ding Ming glanced at Lan Bing. Lan Bing was now a War God-level origin ability user. She could do whatever she wanted in outer space, but her strength was not enough to guarantee her safety in a place as dangerous as the upper echelons of the Empire. Back on Rainforest Planet 1, the people from the Hidden Front were all at this level of strength, and some of them were even stronger. In addition, those generals had deep foundations. Ding Ming had not dared to act rashly back then because of this. A group centered around Chancellor Wenyang could not be underestimated, not to mention that the strength of the upper echelons of the Empire far exceeded the strength of their group. This trip to Planet Nua's capital was undoubtedly going to be a dangerous one. There were many things that could not be resolved through brute force alone. Xi and Jia had obviously thought of this as well. I originally intended for you to go alone, but after thinking about it, I still feel that it's not safe. You're quite good at fighting and killing, but the struggle for power is not as simple as a competition of strength. If you expose yourself too early, it'll affect the overall situation. Sister Bing is experienced in this aspect, and she also has a wealth of experience in Ocean Sky Xinghao. She'll be a good helper for you. Listen to her carefully. Understood. Ding Ming nodded seriously. Then, when do I set off? Xings said, I'll send you away tomorrow morning, because according to Ancestral Gregon's plan, he'll arrive at Xingwu Department tomorrow afternoon. Chuan Yu's base is in Xingwu City, so before he goes to the capital, he'll definitely meet with the relevant upper echelons of Chuan Yu. He's a chess piece that Chuan Yu planted in the parliament, and he supports the Conservative Party. He's secretly hostile to the Radical Party represented by Chancellor Wenyang, as well as the Apocalypse Group that he supports. I've already entered all the details of Ancestral Gregon and his wife into the system. Tonight, you must memorize them and imitate them. Ding Ming sighed helplessly. He had just returned, and now he had to go out again. He was really born to be busy. Xi Jia turned off the wristband. Sister Yin and Sister Xia will be waiting outside to meet you. If there's an emergency, the Divine Arrow spaceship will rush over immediately. Ding Ming was no longer in the mood to eat. All right, let me take a closer look. Xi Jia turned his head to look at Meng Yin, who was eating and drinking. Sister Yin, let's go to my villa and continue tasting the delicious food. Meng Yin was puzzled. Mr. Ting's place tastes pretty good. Why we have to change places? Xi and Jia had already stood up, and at the same time, his eyelids drooped. Doesn't this kid think that eating is more important than his wife? Now that his wife is here, what if he shows off later? Can we single people take it? Meng Yin could not help but smile, and she immediately stood up. Lil Bing, Mr. Ting is finally back, and he has to set off tomorrow morning. You should rest well tonight. Even though Lan Bing was full of murderous intent, her pretty face slowly turned red when she heard Meng Yan's hint. Chapter 858. Night slowly fell, and the entire base was lit up. It was the same kind of colorful light as Meteor City. The spaceport was like a colorful fairy tale world. Meteors occasionally streaked across the sky, and the night was tranquil and beautiful. As soon as Xi and Jia and Meng Yin left, Ding Ming returned to his bedroom. He lay down on the soft bed and began to study the information he had received from the wristwatch. This ancestral Gregon was indeed not simple. From the information Xi and Jia had provided, Ding Ming had noticed two things. Ancestral Gregon did not have much combat strength and was only a beginner origin ability user. However, he was willing to spend money and was very generous to everyone, especially his bodyguard and secretary. This bodyguard was called Yuan Sheng, and he was an advanced warlord. He basically relied on Ancestral Gregon to survive and was extremely loyal to Ancestral Gregon. He had been following Ancestral Gregon since he was 33 years old. Sophie was also a person worth considering. This bar girl was originally a prostitute, and she did not have much of a relationship with Ancestral Gregon. However, Sophie had lived a life of luxury in Nanling City, where money was spent like water. She was used to all kinds of big shots, and her experience was quite impressive. This became an important help for ancestral Gragon in his climb to the top. Thus, it was only natural that she and ancestral Gragon would end up together. According to Xian Jie's plan, he would first visit the boss of Chuangyu in Xingwu City, Guanxinqing. Then, he would take the Empire's flight to planet Nuashing. After careful calculation, he realized that this would take up quite a bit of time. Sokka's had given him a year, but he had already wasted 3 months before he even set off. Ding Ming was still thinking when Lan Bing finished washing up. She walked into the room in a soft purple nightgown. Chairman Zhu, aren't you going to rest yet? Are you still thinking about food? Food is more important than your wife. You said it yourself. Ding Ming was a little embarrassed. Ahem, I was a little hungry in the afternoon. Lan Bing's nightgown was a little alluring. The front of her chest was open, revealing her snow-white skin. The hem only reached her waist, and her long, straight legs were quite eye-catching. Lan Bing also sat down at the head of the bed. She couldn't help but sigh. I thought my progress was fast enough. I didn't expect you to be even faster. Even I can't see through your aura now. Ding Ming thought to himself, I can see through your aura, but the problem is that I can't control myself. Lan Bing rested her head on Ding Ming's chest. Ding Ming's eyelids drooped as he said, I say, you're tempting me to commit a crime. Lan Bing raised her head and revealed a cunning look. You're a wanted criminal of the Federal Empire. Are you still afraid of committing crimes? She raised her head a little too much, and the front of her shirt was open a lot. Ding Ming could see a lot of her naked body. Of course, Ding Ming's vision was not there. He used his telekinesis to turn off the light in the room. The night passed quickly, but the sky was still dark. Neither of them fell asleep. Lan Bing rested her head on Ding Ming's chest and said softly, Why aren't you talking now? Ding Ming said with satisfaction, I'm thinking about it. Lan Bing frowned. What are you thinking about? Ding Ming said, Your voice just now. Lan Bing blushed and pressed the pillow on Ding Ming's face. Of all the things to say, why did you have to say that? Their first time wasn't a pleasant experience, but this night's experience was especially satisfying and blissful. Therefore, the two of them didn't feel tired even after an entire night. All right, I'll stop teasing you. Ding Ming laughed. I have a question to ask you. Lan Bing waved her hand and said, Wait. In the future, you have to call me by my nickname when we're together. Ding Ming thought for a moment and said, Little Bing. Lan Bing smiled sweetly. Good girl. Ding Ming was speechless. Why do I feel like a child? Lan Bing smiled. You are a child. Ding Ming said, All right, let me ask you something serious. How did you get that heavenly punishment of calamity? Lan Bing said, It's a secret treasure. I found it at the Haitian group. I don't know what it's made of, but it's definitely a powerful weapon. Why are you suddenly asking about this? Ding Ming sighed. When I was at the Hidden Front space station this time, I encountered an opponent who had this secret treasure. That person has already been controlled by demons. We're going to planet Nua's capital this time. If you encounter such an expert, don't face it head on. You won't be able to handle that level of attack. Back then, when Gong Ping made his move, Ding Ming had relied entirely on the Divine Light weapon's ability to counter Gong Ping's heavenly punishment of calamity. Although Lan Bing had also absorbed the Divine Light energy, she didn't have the Divine Light weapon's buff. If she encountered the demons, it would be a disaster. Lan Bing obviously understood that Ding Ming was worried about her safety. She couldn't help but smile sweetly and kiss Ding Ming's face gently. Are you hungry? It'll be 7 in the morning soon. Shall I go make breakfast for you? Ding Ming nodded in satisfaction. Looks like a wife is more important than food. After breakfast, the two of them prepared for a while. Then, Xi and Jie sent a message. Gather at the spaceport. The Divine Arrow spaceship now had plenty of energy. There was no need to teleport inside. The subspace engine could directly create a teleportation array at the center of the spaceport. Seeing Lan Bing holding Ding Ming's arm intimately, Xi and Jie couldn't help but laugh. Looks like you had a good rest last night. Lan Bing blushed a little. Ding Ming couldn't help but argue. You're a bachelor. You'll never get a chance to rest. Xi and Jie laughed out loud. Ding Ming, You should really use some medicine to increase your height. Do you know how I see Sister Bing holding on to you? Like what? Ding Ming and Lan Bing asked at the same time. Xingjie said, like an older sister taking her younger brother to the mall. Ding Ming gritted his teeth. It's a pity that you didn't go to the Steel Main Empire to find a partner. You're so handsome. Xingjie laughed. All right. Let's stop joking. It's time to go. At this time, Lan Bing let go of Ding Ming. Her body was surrounded by purple smoke. Soon, she transformed into Sophie's image. Ding Ming turned his head in surprise. Sister Yin, you taught little Bing Phantom Fantasy? Meng Yin smiled and nodded. Yes, Auntie Shuyin agreed. When we went to a place like the fertile chalk star system, we definitely couldn't use our original appearance. The power of Meng Yin's secret technique was that it didn't use any external objects to transform into a human. To put it simply, Phantom Fantasy didn't fundamentally change Lan Bing. It only imitated some basic characteristics of her iris, hair, and DNA to fool all kinds of detection systems and scanners. Thus, it achieved the goal of transforming. If they really met someone who was super strong and knew Lan Bing well, they would immediately see that Sophie was an imposter. Thinking of this, Ding Ming suddenly reached out and wiped his face. A transparent film appeared in front of Meng Yin. Meng Yin was shocked. How are you going to disguise yourself without the Thousand Shadows venom? Ding Ming smiled. Watch carefully. After saying this, his entire body changed as if by magic. That was a holographic projection that was completely simulated by the light screen. He transformed into another person at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not only did his appearance, height, voice, hair, iris, DNA, and clothes change, even his aura changed to that of non-combat admin-type origin ability user. If Ding Ming hadn't shown it in front of them, no one would have believed that this ancestral dragon was Ding Ming. This was the uniqueness of AIG's technique. The origin vortex in Ding Ming's body had the ability to transform the human body. Not to mention a low-level life form like a human. Even a high-level life form as strong as AIG's planet would be transformed without a trace. The existence of the vortex was a colorless and formless realm. It was a transitional stage in the pursuit of immortality. If one could really forge a star vortex, then it would be considered a great success. Ding Ming and Lan Bing walked into the divine light teleportation array hand in hand. The next moment, the two of them appeared by a beautiful riverside. Looking at the green mountain opposite them, they saw an elegant and exquisite villa standing at the foot of the mountain. He had a deep impression of this place because this was the Han family's residence in the southern suburbs of Xingwu City. Back then, he had found clues about the hidden front in the Han family's courtyard. However, when he spread his telekinesis vision, he found that the Han family's villa was empty. There was not a single person in sight. Not only were the members of the Han family gone, but the servants and the AI butler were also gone. Judging from the dust piled up everywhere in the villa, the Han family's courtyard had been abandoned for at least a year. Lan Bing explained, a year ago, Han Jing resigned from his position at Xingwu University. His wife, Li Yuanmin, also resigned from Wings of Starlight. The eldest brother, Han Li, is in the same situation as Miss Chu. He was stripped of his authority as a fleet commander and transferred to the front line of the war zone. The second brother, Han Liming, was also demoted from the Beta Group. The third brother, Han Wei-ming, has been working at the Empire's Energy Conservation Center. Ding Ming could not help but sigh. Looks like they've been implicated. Han Yin had always been Wen Yang's hardcore supporter. She and Han Feng had not returned from the fertile chalk star system for 3 years. This was a clear indication that the Han family was 100% affected by the Hidden Front incident. Lan Bing said, according to the information provided by Brother Jie, it's fortunate that these people are still alive, but their situation is not very good. Ding Ming looked around. Fortunately, the new ruler did not go too far. He did not kill them all. Lan Bing said, logically speaking, you and Ruler Wenyang are the greatest threats in the eyes of the Hidden Front. If they want to eliminate you, they will have to eliminate everyone related to you. However, the new ruler does not seem to have chosen to do so. Ding Meng said, "The reason is simple. The new ruler probably knows that ruler Wenyang is still alive, and the hidden front space station exploded 3 years ago. Gong Ping did not appear again, so they have no idea whether I'm still alive or not." Lan Bing suddenly pointed to the sky. "Your subordinate is here to pick you up." Ding Meng looked up and saw a luxurious supreme bluebird flying car slowly descending towards them. He could not help but laugh. This ancestral Graygon isn't all that powerful, but he sure has a lot of extravagance. This limited edition car must be worth at least 5 million, right? Lan Bing said expressionlessly. "It's already a good car worth over 10 million. The flying car quickly landed on the tarmac. A tall and burly man in a suit stepped out of the car and said respectfully, "Chairman Zhu, madam, please get in the car. The officials' banquet will begin in 2 hours." Ding Meng walked into the car like an old man, but he was cursing inwardly. He did not like being called that. It sounded like someone was calling him Chairman Pig. Chapter 859. In the northern suburbs of Xingwu City, 100 kilometers away from the main city, there was a mansion that looked like a small satellite city located on a small hill. This was not the headquarters of Chuangyu, but the private residence of the Guan family. Ding Meng and Lan Bing were people who had seen many luxurious mansions, but they had never seen a mansion of such a scale. This was because it covered an area of at least 100,000 square meters, and there were all kinds of buildings in it. There was a fairy tale-like castle, a stacked hotel that looked like a spaceship, an antique villa area, and a spherical building that looked extremely modern. There was a wide variety of things, and it was hard to imagine that this was a private residence. Xinjia had obviously done his homework in advance. According to the information he provided to Ding Meng, the leader of Chuangyu, Guan Xinxing, was the real richest man in the Norse Empire. He had a total of 9 children, and it could be said that he had a lot of children and grandchildren. Guan Xinxing's marriage was also quite rare in the empire. The first wife he married when he was young was his business partner, and she gave birth to 5 sons for him. Unfortunately, his first wife died from a strange poison, and he did not continue to marry her for 12 years. It was not until Chuangyu entered a rapid development that he married his second wife. This woman was called Long Lin, and she was the daughter of a big shot in the military. It could be seen that his second marriage was completely based on the needs of the company's development, and there was not much emotional factor in it. Long Lin was Guan Lin's mother, and she only had one daughter, Guan Lin. Other than the different surnames, their names were exactly the same. It could be seen that Long Lin doted on Guan Lin very much. Long Lin's father was a 4-star general of the empire. With this relationship, Chuangyu was able to obtain a large number of orders from the military. Unfortunately, not long after Guan Lin was born, this high-ranking general passed away, and the Long family immediately fell. Originally, many people thought that Chuangyu would decline, but they did not expect that Chuangyu would become even more prosperous. It had to be said that Guan Xinxing was quite capable, but there were rumors that Long Lin's marriage with him seemed to be divided. Guan Xinxing's third wife, who was also his current wife, was called Xinjiao. She was a very famous supermodel in the empire. After marriage, she had 2 sons and a daughter. She was the one who appeared in public in Chuangyu, and was equivalent to the official wife of the Guan. Guan Xinxing's marriage was very special in the empire, but no one had any objections because Chuangyu was too rich. When wealth accumulated to a certain extent, it could also change qualitatively. Although the Guan family was not directly active in the political arena, they had a great influence in the political arena. Like the Apocalypse Group, they could even influence the election of the head of state. Especially in the parliament, the Guan family had a decisive voice and was the real behind-the-scenes financier. Because the parliament had the right to take military action and make decisions, the Guan family happened to have common interests with the military. Ancestral Graygon did not have access to Guan Xinxing's level. It was Sophie who pulled the strings. 3 years ago, she met Xinjiao's eldest son, Guan Yi, and was able to enter the eyes of the Guan family. Xinjiao's 3 children were the same as the children of the Iron Mane Empire's royal family. They were ignorant and idle all day long and pursued a life of pleasure. Guan Xinqing's other children were completely different. They jointly managed the affairs of Chuangyu. The Guan family was the real top noble family in the empire, but they were relatively special because they rarely dealt with other groups. Today was Guan Xinqing's fifth son, Guan Mingxi's 1-month-old son. The Guan family held a small 1-month-old banquet to celebrate. Although it was called a small banquet, the lineup was enough to scare people. Not to mention other things, there were at least 56 luxury cars of various sizes on the tarmac in the distance. They were all famous cars worth more than 10 million yuan. Those who were able to attend the 1-month-old banquet were definitely high-ranking officials and dignitaries, and they had to be people who had deep connections with the Guan family. Among these dazzling luxury cars, Ding Ming even saw a few flying cars with military insignia. These cars were not expensive, but they were silently and neatly lined up in a row. They had a low-key aura, and no one dared to look down on them. As soon as Ding Ming's bluebird stopped, a waiter in a suit came to greet them. "Mr. Zhu, Mrs. Zhu, please come in." Ding Ming had attended many similar events. Lan Bing secretly sent a telepathic message to him. "Don't cause trouble." Ding Ming laughed. "Don't worry. Even if someone rides on my head and pees on me, I will endure it." The waiter led the two of them into the spaceship-style hotel. The lobby on the first floor was also designed in the style of flowing light crystal. It was very clean and simple. There were quite a lot of people inside, men and women in suits. They were all in groups of 3 to 5, each holding a goblet with a smile as they chatted in a friendly manner. Ding Ming and Lan Bing's seats were arranged in a corner of the Western Garden. This small booth was enough to show that ancestral Graygon's status was not high. After Ding Ming sat down, the waiter said politely, "Mr. Zhu, young master, he is still receiving other guests. He specifically said that you and Mrs. Zhu must wait for him when you arrive." Ding Ming nodded like an old man. "All right, thank you." Once the waiter left, Ding Ming turned his head and asked, "Ah Sheng, have you prepared the gifts?" Yuan Sheng lowered his head and said, "Chief Zhu, I prepared everything according to your instructions. I will register young master Guan Ming's gift in the reception room later. Young master Yi's personal gift is with me." Ding Ming said, "All right, give it to me. You can go back to your work." With ancestral Graygon status, he couldn't keep a bodyguard by his side for a long time. Therefore, when Yuan Sheng left, Lan Bing couldn't help but ask, "You still want to give a gift alone?" Ding Ming sighed and said, "This is brother Jie's ability. How can I find out such a secret?" Lan Bing's interest was piqued. "It seems that your personal gift is quite mysterious." At this moment, a young man dressed in bright clothes and branded clothes parted the crowd and walked over excitedly. "Brother Zhu, you're finally here." Ding Ming smiled. "Young master, long time no see." Guani glanced at Lan Bing. "Ah, sister-in-law is here too. Welcome." Lan Bing nodded symbolically. She didn't have a good impression of this Guan. This person had a greasy hair and a powdered face. A man like him even had a layer of powder on his face. After carefully sensing him, this person was completely hollowed out by alcohol and women. He even had a slight drug addiction. As soon as he saw ancestral Graygon and his wife, Guan Yi's expression immediately became interesting. He blinked and smiled at Ding Ming. "Brother, did you get the thing I asked you to get last time?" Ding Ming laughed and took out a small, delicate handbag from his pocket. "Brother, I've always treated your matter as a top priority. Look, didn't I get it?" Guani looked down, and his eyes suddenly flashed like a drug addict seeing poison. His expression was really interesting. He gave Ding Ming a big hug. "Brother, you're awesome. You're really awesome. I admire you. Let's go upstairs and have a drink. Sister-in-law, come with us." Looking at his happy face, Lan Bing suddenly understood that the gift in the bag was ancestral Graygon's stepping stone. The reason was very simple. The hall on this floor was filled with ordinary guests. Except for the waiters, no one from the Guan family could be seen. It was estimated that the real manager could only be seen on the upper floors. Lan Bing was really curious. What is this personal gift? Why didn't Brother Jie give me this information? Ding Ming swaggered in front. "It's better if you don't know." "Why?" Ding Ming said, "This gift is really shameful." The more he explained, the more curious Lan Bing was. "What is it?" Ding Ming said casually. "If I tell you, Brother Jie will hide it from you. It must be for your own good." Lan Bing was annoyed. "If you don't tell me, we'll sleep in separate rooms every day for half a year." "You?" Ding Ming was speechless. Is it okay to take away such a big benefit for no reason? "Well, are you sure you want to know?" Ding Ming asked. "Nonsense." Lan Bing was a little angry. "You have to keep it a secret from your wife. Where's your shame?" Ding Ming's eyelids drooped. "There are 100 women's upholstery in the bag." Lan Bing was not surprised by these strange things. "What's there to keep it a secret?" Ding Ming's eyelids drooped even more. "Those are not ordinary upholstery. Ancestral Gragon spent a lot of effort to get it." Lan Bing said, "Is it the original flavor that you men like?" "Damn, you know a lot of things." Ding Ming said, "This is only one of the conditions. The other conditions are very strict. It must be used by 100 different women. The age requirement is that it must be a virgin under 20 years old. The most difficult condition is that it must be used by you women on inconvenient days every month. Are you satisfied now?" Even though Lan Bing had always been knowledgeable, she couldn't help but be dumbfounded. With Guan Yi's status as the 6th young master of the Guan family, what kind of woman couldn't he get? He actually had such a strange hobby. Lan Bing felt nauseous. Ancestral Gragon was really a bad guy. He actually found these things to cater to Guan Yi's taste. Seeing Lan Bing's angry face, Ding Ming's bad taste came out. "Lil Bing, I'll collect all the things you use in the future." "How dare you?" Lan Bing was furious. "If you do this kind of thing, I will definitely kill you. You don't learn anything good. You learn these dirty things." While she was still angry, Ding Ming had already swaggered upstairs. The second floor was indeed a more high-end and exquisite reception room. The crystal glass in the hall emitted a pure white light, giving people a feeling of being in the clouds. The entire reception room was a regular hexagon. Different groups of people were standing or sitting in each area. On the highest and most magnificent table in the northernmost area, there were 3 to 5 men with extraordinary temperament talking in low voices. As soon as Ding Ming came in, his eyes were immediately attracted by this group of people. He almost recognized Guan Xinxing at a glance. Chapter 860. Ding Ming didn't know much about this Chuangyu boss, but Xinjie had prepared very detailed information for him. Guan Xinxing's background was similar to Ancestral Gragon's. Both of them had lost their parents when they were young, and they were extremely poor. When Chuangyu hadn't been established yet, Guan Xinxing was just a middleman between the exploration team's office and the military. This kind of person was basically an informant who sold information. However, Guan Xinxing took advantage of the opportunity to make a fortune during the Fertile Chalk Star System War. He would often be able to pinpoint the exact coordinates of the energy sources that the Empire and Frogmen had yet to discover before the military. At first, he was honest and sincere in his negotiations with the military, but the military didn't want to pay him a high price. In the end, he became angry and sold the information to the Frogmen. The Frogmen took advantage of this opportunity and quickly took over the territory and looted it. Of course, it would be strange if someone like him didn't cause any trouble. The military immediately sent people to secretly arrest him and lock him up. He was charged with the crime of colluding with other races and treason. This Guan Xinxing was quite impressive. He wasn't executed for such a serious crime, and instead, the military released him. The reason was simple. Even if they arrested him, it wouldn't make any difference to the overall situation. The frontline reconnaissance fleet didn't have Guan Xinxing's elusive information channels. More importantly, the Frogmen didn't trade star coins with Guan Xinxing. Instead, they traded source cores, silver core stones, crystal source cores, and other precious resources. These are what the logistics department needed the most. Guan Xinxing sold them to the Empire's military, and it was hard for him not to make a fortune. After a few exchanges, everyone became familiar with each other. The Empire's frontline troops were able to take over key areas before the Frogman army, and Guan Xinxing was an important factor that couldn't be ignored. After Chuangyu was established, the investment in manpower and resources multiplied. It was inevitable that they would become a large financial group. Guan Xinqing's label was also very obvious. First of all, he was known to love money as much as his life. This kind of preference for wealth was not just a simple love of money. In his mind, if it was money that should be spent, he would not frown at it. If it was money that should not be spent, then don't expect him to spend a single cent thinking back to when Guanlin was kidnapped by the Hidden Front. He didn't care at all. If you want to kill me, then kill me. You want to take my money in this way? Dream on. This gave others a bad impression. In Guan Xinqing's eyes, his daughter's life wasn't as important as his wealth. Secondly, Chuangyu supported the Conservative Party, which had always been moderate and opposed to war. This was very contradictory. He had made a fortune from war, but he was opposed to war. This was a very complicated and contradictory person. At this moment, Guan Xinqing gave Ding Meng such a feeling. He stood on the stage, accompanied by a few dignified military personnel. These people were obviously taller than him, but he always seemed to be the one standing out. He didn't look like a middle-aged man who was over 100 years old. His square face always had a faint smile, but it revealed an invisible majesty. He was obviously very short, but his temperament was calm, graceful, and generous. His every movement revealed a kind of infectious power, making you feel that he was sincere, talkative, and amiable. But at the same time, it gave you the illusion that you couldn't see his true face clearly, as if he was shrouded in clouds and mist. There were very few people that Ding Meng couldn't see through. Other than Guan Xinqing, on the armchairs not far from the stage, there were two men in black, one old and one young. They were dressed very casually and looked very quiet. They were very low-key and didn't attract attention at all. But in Ding Meng's perception, the strength of these two people was quite amazing. They were not inferior to the group of people like Chancellor Wenyang, General Ross, and General Yuan. He didn't expect the Norse Empire to have such low-key masters. They must be people like Guan Xinqing's bodyguards. For a top rich man like him, there must be corresponding top masters around him to protect him. At this moment, he had led Ding Meng and his wife to the tea stage in the northeast area. There was a glamorous lady sitting on the sofa in the center. Seeing Guan Xinqing's honest and respectful attitude in front of the lady, Ding Meng knew that this must be Xian Jiao, the third wife of Guan Xinqing. This supermodel of the empire used to be a big star in the entertainment industry. She was also supported by Chuangyu. She was mainly active in the long-lasting Star Wars International League and had been the spokesperson of the Federal Empire for several times. Almost all the citizens of the Federal Empire knew her. Mom, Mr. Zhu and Mrs. Zhu are here to visit, Guani introduced seriously. Hello, Mrs. Zhu. Ding Meng also bowed respectfully. Xian Jiao raised her sharp chin slightly. This was considered a greeting. She really couldn't be blamed for being arrogant. Ancestral Gragon's status was there. It was already very polite for Guan Yi to introduce him to Xian Jiao. Lan Bing obviously received Xian Jie's instructions in advance. She quickly took out a beautifully packaged crystal box from her handbag and said, Mrs. Zhu, Mr. Zhu and I are honored to be supported by you. Today, we take the opportunity to visit you on this festive day. This is a small gift from us. Please accept it. Xian Jiao still sat there without moving. She only glanced at the box with her beautiful eyes. Immediately, a female attendant beside her took the box. This female attendant's appearance and temperament were not ordinary. Ding Meng could tell at a glance that this woman's strength was extraordinary. There were really a lot of masters in the Guan family. The female attendant opened the package. Inside was a small crystal bottle filled with 7-colored liquid. After unscrewing the bottle cap, she sniffed carefully. Then, she turned her head and said, Mrs. Zhu, this is a very pure Thousand Shadows sacred water. Just by hearing the name, one could tell that it was a product of the devouring world. It was the original liquid of the Thousand Shadows leaf of the demonic shadow tree in the sacred lake. This thing was almost invincible for women's beauty. To what extent was its effect? To put it bluntly, a 60-year-old woman would immediately look 30 years younger after applying it. It was not the kind of artificial beauty technology, but a pure natural treasure. This thousand shadows sacred water was something that many ladies of the Federal Empire couldn't afford to use because it was too difficult to get. It could be said that it was hard to get even with money. However, it was very easy for Lan Bing to get it. During the years when Lan Bing and Lu Qing were on the Flame Star, they had collected a large number of natural treasures from the devouring world. Lan Bing and Lu Qing were not close, but if Meng Yan went to ask for something, Ding Meng and the other women would give it to her. Speaking of which, it was strange. Meng Yan was not Ding Meng's woman, but among this group of women, Meng Yan was the one who had followed Ding Meng the longest. She served Ding Meng everywhere. Her prestige was the highest in the hearts of the women. Even the straightforward women of steel did not dare to act rashly. Lan Bing's gift was undoubtedly to suit her taste. Xian Jiao used to be young and beautiful, but after she got married and gave birth to 3 children, her appearance was not as good as before. A beauty like her who married into a rich family from the entertainment industry was a rare example. She also knew that what attracted Guan Xinqing was her beauty. Once her appearance aged, her status would decline. Therefore, when the gift was presented, she sighed slightly and said, "Xiaofei, you are so considerate. You, an ancestral Gragon, can walk around. Be casual and don't be restrained." With this sentence, it meant that Guan Xinqing did not treat Ding Meng and Lan Bing as an outsider. "Thank you for your kindness, madam." Lan Bing's ability in this aspect was indeed something that Ding Meng could not learn. Ding Meng also sighed inwardly. It was not a coincidence that Lan Bing could become the president of Sheng Hao's branch. Just as the two of them were about to find a place to sit down, a person rushed in through the door on the second floor. It was a young woman, wearing a luxurious dress, but the black dress looked very awkward on her. This was because she did not care about her image of a beautiful woman. She ran over quickly and shouted, third aunt, I'm here." Hexa Yao frowned and said, "There are so many distinguished guests here. Pay attention to your image." The beautiful woman's image was actually not bad. She looked pure and beautiful, with a mixed-race face and a pair of exaggerated round earrings. However, she was careless and looked like a girl who was used to being in the wilderness. Lan Bing thought to herself, "This is Xian Jiao's niece." Xian Jiao has a younger sister, but unfortunately, she died in an accident many years ago. This niece has been living with her ever since. She thought that her reminder would make Ding Meng more mature. Unexpectedly, Ding Meng suddenly stepped forward and said, "Hello." The wild girl looked at him impatiently and said, "Who are you, old man?" Xian Jiao was a little angry. "Watch your attitude in front of distinguished guests." "Madam, it's okay." Ding Meng smiled and waved his hand. He smiled at the wild girl and said, "Hello, missin. Do you remember contestant number 3, Wild King?" This wild girl was none other than Angel, who Ding Meng had met in the underground casino on planet Beidou. Ding Meng's question stunned Angel. How? How did you know?" Ding Meng quickly explained. "I'm friends with him." Angel grabbed Ding Meng's arm and pulled him to a booth in the distance. Lan Bing and the others were very curious, especially Xian Jiao. Angel was used to being wild, but she was actually familiar with this ancestral Gragon. Beside the booth, Angel glanced around and asked softly, "Old man, where's Ding Meng? Where'd he go?" Ding Meng smiled bitterly and said, "He's wanted." Angel said, "I know, he's wanted, but what can anyone do to him?" In her mind, Ding Meng was not only strong, but he was also very good at gambling. So what if he was wanted? His life would still be good. Maybe he was enjoying himself somewhere in outer space right now. Ding Meng could only lie. Mr. Ting went to outer space with Boss Su to do something. Oh, Angel was a little disappointed. Ding Meng continued, "But Mr. Ting has been thinking about you. He told me to visit you when I came here." Angel said in an old-fashioned manner, "Ancestral Gragon, right? Ding Meng's friends are my friends. With me here, you don't have to worry about anything. If you need anything, just tell me. I'll help if I can." Ding Meng knew Angel's temper very well. Although she was usually careless and arrogant, she was actually quite loyal. Therefore, Ding Meng said calmly, "Missin, I'd like to meet your second aunt." Chapter 861. Angel's eyes widened when she heard Ding Meng's request. Ding Meng frowned and asked, "Is there a problem?" Angel looked around and asked, "Are you sure you want to go?" Ding Meng had no choice but to answer honestly. "It's like this. Mr. Ting is Miss Guan's friend. He asked me to pass on a message to second madam." Angel whispered when she heard that it was about Ding Meng. "I can only bring you there, but not for too long. It won't be good if third aunt finds out." Ding Meng could imagine this. Long Lin's status in the Guan family was definitely not high. Even Guan Xinqing's second madam did not appear at this occasion. This was enough to explain the problem. Xi and Jiao watched Angel leave with ancestral gray gone. She wondered, Xiao Fei, did they know each other before? At this moment, Lan Bing received Ding Meng's divine sense message and hurriedly explained, "Madam, sir has a friend who is an old acquaintance of Missin. That friend instructed him to come here and pay a visit to Miss," and Xan Jiao asked suspiciously, "the casino on planet Beidou?" It seemed that Xan Jiao was not someone to be trifled with. She even knew about this. Lan Bing did not dare to hide anything and said, "Yes." Xan Jiao sighed and said, "This child is very lucky. She has a benefactor helping her wherever she goes. If it wasn't for your husband's friend, this child would have cried and made a scene again. Xiao Fei, your husband is not bad. Cherish him." "I will," Lan Bing replied calmly. Deep in the Guan family's mansion, there was an ancient courtyard in the middle of a wide green lawn. This courtyard looked like an ancestral hall, but it was lifeless when one entered. Before Angel could speak, a woman's voice came from behind a closed mahogany door. "Is it my little niece?" Angel actually became obedient. "Second aunt, I'm here to visit you." The woman seemed to be very pleased. "Good child, come in. The door is not closed." Angel led Ding Meng in slowly. Ding Meng finally saw clearly that this was indeed a large ancestral hall. The hall on the first floor was built with Nuashin wood. There were many religious murals and pendants in the hall. In the center of the hall was a wooden table. A screen lit up on the table, displaying Sanskrit scriptures. Long Lin sat on the ground with her back to the door. She seemed to be a devout religious person. Ding Meng was shocked. Guan's mother had a head of silver hair. Guan Lin mother. Meng. She looked very old. Her clothes were very ordinary clothes. A Taoist robe or Taoist robe. Ding Meng bowed slightly. "Second madam, nice to meet you. Ding Meng and I are friends. Mr. Ting and Miss Guan are old acquaintances. They asked me to come and visit you." Long Lin looked like an old woman. You couldn't see any surprise or excitement on her face. There was only a very indifferent calmness. This place was like a space outside the mortal world. It was completely isolated from the outside world. People who stayed here felt like they had no emotions. "Is it Ding Meng, the Empire's most wanted criminal?" Long Lin asked calmly. Although she lived outside the mortal world, she knew a lot about the outside world. Yes, Ding Meng could only bite the bullet and answer. His bad reputation had spread far and wide. Angel immediately interjected, "Second aunt, Ding Meng is also my friend. If it wasn't for him, I would have lost a lot of money." Only when she saw Angel did a faint smile appear on Long Lin's face. Ding Meng suddenly realized something. Could Guan Lin have been as naive and straightforward as Angel when she was young? Was that why Long Lin favored this niece of the third madam? The relationships in the rich and powerful Shure were complicated. "Mr. Zhu, please take a seat," Long Lin said. There were tatama mats on the floor. Ding Meng sat down, but Angel took the initiative to leave. With her status, she couldn't stay here for too long. Long Lin didn't ask about Guan Lin. Instead, she turned around and placed a tea set on the wooden table. She had actually brewed a cup of hot tea for Ding Meng. The teacup was made of an ancient white porcelain. Ding Meng took a sip from it. The tea wasn't of high quality, so it tasted bitter and astringent in his mouth. Long Lin sat down across from him. "Is it bitter?" Ding Meng nodded slowly. "Yes," Long Lin said leisurely. "A cup of tea, 3 flavors for a lifetime. In the end, I still haven't woken up from my dream, but the bitterness is still there." Ding Meng suddenly felt that Guan Lin's mother seemed calm, but her heart was filled with sorrow. "Madam, it's hard to imagine that you would live in a place like this." Long Lin said, "Mr. Zhu, I don't think you've brought any good news with your sudden visit, have you?" Ding Ming was momentarily at a loss for words. This second madam seemed to have the ability to predict the future. She knew exactly why he had come. He really didn't know how to broach the subject of Guanlin. Long Lin sighed softly. "It looks like what's bound to come will come. What can't be kept will never be kept." Ding Ming sighed with emotion. He slowly took out the small crystalline bottle from his pocket and carefully placed it in the center of the wooden table. The two of them sat there quietly. Neither of them took the initiative to speak, but time seemed to stop at this moment. Long Lin stared at the bottle in a daze. After a long time, she slowly rose to her feet. However, her expression was still calm. "When I was young, my father was very strict with me. Whether it was my studies or my martial arts, he gave me 7 lessons in the morning, noon, and night. It was the same every day for 30 years, until I succeeded in my studies." Ding Ming didn't reply. He just listened quietly. Long Lin spoke as if she was describing something very ordinary. "It wasn't until I married into the government at the age of 45 and gave birth to Xiao Lin that I finally had some time to myself. Of course, that was a very happy time for me." Ding Ming could imagine it. Chuanyu had just been established, and business was booming. The Long family and the government were a perfect match. Guanlin had just been born, and everything was thriving. Long Lin's tone finally changed. "But I don't want Xiao Lin to walk down the same path. I always feel that freedom is more precious for a woman. She should do what she likes and chase after what she likes, and not be trapped on a fixed path because her life has been designed from the moment she was born." Ding Ming sighed sadly. Sometimes, the more one looks forward to it, the more things tend to go in the opposite direction. Long Lin's gaze fell on the small bottle on the wooden table again. There was a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I really didn't expect the hidden front to happen." Ding Ming said, "It's been 10 years since then, right?" "Yes, there's still 2 months and 3 days left. It'll be exactly 10 years. Long Lin's expression was a little absent-minded. Guanlin had been kidnapped by the hidden front and separated from her mother for 10 years. During these 10 years, Long Lin had probably spent most of her time in the ancestral hall, chanting scriptures and praying for her daughter's safety. Now, she had returned, but she had turned into ashes. This mother's heart might have died with her. Ding Ming pondered and said, "Miss Guan didn't die in pain." Long Lin stared at him. "Oh," Ding Ming said. Later on, Mr. Ding avenged her and helped her fulfill her wish. In the end, she only left one sentence. She said that she would love you forever. No matter how calm Long Lin was, she seemed to have aged by decades at this moment. She was like an old woman on the verge of death. After a long time, she said, "Please tell Mr. Ding Ming that I'm very grateful to him." Ding Ming said, "Second madam, you're too polite. Mr. Ting and Miss Guan were friends." Long Lin sighed. She was really lucky to have a friend like Mr. Ding Ming. Ding Ming could only thank her again. "Madam, you flatter me." At this time, Long Lin did something that was beyond Ding Ming's imagination. She returned to the wooden table and sat down. She slowly unscrewed the small crystal bottle and poured out a small part of the ashes into the teacup in front of her. Under Ding Ming's shocked gaze, she drank the tea in one gulp. Ding Ming was rarely shocked, but at this moment, he felt an inexplicable chill rising from the bottom of his feet. These were Guanlin's ashes. Guanlin's mother drank her daughter's ashes with tea. If he couldn't see through Guan Xinxing's true colors before, then Long Lin in front of him was a complex existence that he couldn't see through. Long Lin and Guanlin were like a combination. He seemed to see Guanlin sneering at him, and also seemed to see Long Lin staring at him. It was simply an illusion. Ding Ming was moved. "Madam, why are you doing this?" Long Lin was so calm that it was frightening. "Because I love her too. I love her very, very much." Ding Ming suddenly felt helpless and sad. This mother missed her daughter too much. This kind of longing was so deep that she couldn't accept the news of her daughter's death. She couldn't even extricate herself from it. Ding Ming said helplessly. Madam, please restrain your grief. Long Lin ignored his words. Instead, she asked, You're going to report to the parliament this time, right? Ding Ming was shocked. Even though the ancestral Greygon's purpose for heading to planet Norland was no secret, even someone like Long Lin, who rarely left the ancestral hall, knew about it. Wasn't this government a little too powerful? Long Lin sighed. Over the past few years, the Empire has been constantly retreating from the front lines of the fertile chalk system, and this has caused the parliament to shift. Xian Jiao has always been obedient to Xian Qing, so you'll be one of the government's representatives if you go to the parliament. The conservative faction has been strengthening, and the radical faction will keep an eye on every newcomer. Her words contained a lot of information, and Ding Ming had a hard time digesting it. He still didn't know what was going on with the upper echelons of the Empire. Long Lin said seriously, Mr. Zhu, I hope that you'll have a safe trip this time. If you ever have the chance to come to Xingwu City again, I hope that you'll come back alive and not ask someone to give me a bottle. Ding Ming seemed to understand something. She was implying that he wouldn't be able to return from this trip. Sure enough, Long Lin continued, This is my way of expressing my gratitude to Mr. Ting. Since you brought back Guan Lin's ashes, I'll give you some information. Consider it my repayment to Ding Ming. Chapter 862. After exiting the hall, Ding Ming took the same route back to the hotel. The second floor of the hotel was still lively, but it was different from before. Guan Xinxing, the star of the show, was nowhere to be seen. Everyone else was still talking to each other. Angel quickly ran over. You old man, you've done so quickly? She had always been straightforward, and her voice was loud. Many of the guests turned to look at her. Ding Ming was speechless. What did she mean by done already? She could have just kept quiet if she didn't know how to talk. Of course, he couldn't say that out loud. Mr. Ting asked me to pass on some information. Oh, Angel seemed to be uninterested. By the way, where's the boss? Why didn't I see him? Ding Ming asked. Angel was also a little puzzled. Uncle just said that a very important guest will be arriving soon. He went to the tarmac to pick him up. Her words were simple, but Ding Ming could tell what she was trying to say. If Guan Xinxing abandoned all the guests and went to the tarmac to pick him up, this person must be someone important. Someone from the upper echelons of the Empire? A military boss? The boss of a corporation? Or the leader of a faction? At this moment, Lan Bing also walked over. Did everything go well? Ding Ming nodded and said, It went well. I've returned the item. There was no way he could hide this matter about Guan Lin from the people around him, but Lan Bing didn't blame him. Perhaps among all of Ding Ming's women, Lan Bing was the one who understood this matter the best. Under such complicated circumstances, Guan Lin giving herself to Ding Ming was actually the best choice. Of course, it was a pity that she couldn't escape her fate in the end. Now that the ashes have been sent back to Xingwu City, it could be said that Miss Guan's last wish had been fulfilled. However, Ding Ming still had a deep impression of Long Lin. After chatting for a while, Guan Xinxing finally appeared. He didn't appear from the door on the second floor, but from the staircase on the third floor. In other words, the guest that he personally received had parachuted to the rooftop and bypassed the first floor to enter here. Sure enough, a tall woman in a formal dress appeared on the exquisite staircase made of white jade wood. This was an unconventional dress. It was an ancient Victorian-style coat with black and white stripes, a black belt, a standing collar, a high waist, princess sleeves, and long white gloves. This kind of palace style was not something that ordinary people could wear. Back then, Lan Bing's Cheongsam style was unique. But now, Lan Bing had to admit that only this woman in front of her could bring out the style of a British aristocrat. She knew that she was far inferior to this woman. The woman wore a wide purple felt hat slanted sideways. Only half of her face was exposed. Just this half of her face was enough to silence the entire reception hall. Even the well-trained attendants were stunned. This half of the face could no longer be described as beautiful. It was a painting in a picture, a person in a dream, a work of art, a divine charm. Regardless of whether one was a man or a woman, as long as one could see this half of the face clearly, they would be deeply attracted, unable to shift their gaze away. Even Ding Ming, whose mental fortitude was as strong as a divine needle, was momentarily dazed at this moment. As for the other people in the reception hall, they were already dazzled and dumbfounded. Guan Xinxing lowered his head and held the woman's white gloves. He accompanied her down the staircase in a very gentlemanly manner. Previously, Guan Xinxing was like a big shot among all the celebrities and dignitaries. However, in front of this beautiful woman, he was like a servant. The beauty didn't have an aloof and cold demeanor. On the contrary, she always had a friendly smile on her face, and her beautiful eyes flashed with a bright light. That was a kind of absolute confidence, because only a confident woman was the most beautiful woman. The woman's every frown and smile, every step she took, every move she made was filled with generosity, confidence, elegance, nobility, and charm. This was a true aristocrat. That kind of noble temperament was emitted from her bones. This was a true goddess. That kind of beauty was like the vast starry sky, ever-changing yet integrated into one. Even Lan Bing, who had always had a strong mental fortitude, was mesmerized. Ding Ming could not help but secretly use his telepathic thoughts. Who is she? Lan Bing was shocked. You don't even know Ji Qinxue? Ji Qinxue? Ding Ming searched hard for information in his telepathic thoughts database. He finally found it. This Ji Qinxue was recognized as the most beautiful woman in the Norse Empire. She could be said to be the nation's goddess. The three largest financial groups in the empire were Apocalypse, Chuangyu, and Beidou. Ji Qinxue was the highest leader of the Beta group. Unlike the previous two groups, Apocalypse group was larger and Chuangyu was wealthier than the previous two groups. Although the Beta group was not as wealthy as the previous two groups, the Beta group was supported by 3 martial art sections. These 3 groups were the most powerful groups in the Norse Empire. Ji Qinxue was a legendary figure in the empire. Not only was she talented in martial arts, but she was also talented in business. She took over the Beta group at the age of 30 and used only 10 years to turn Beidou from a third-rate company into a first-rate financial group. Beidou's business was very simple, creating stars for entertainment. They were very good at selecting newcomers from the entertainment industry and the Star Wars International League. Their foresight could only be described with one word. They were very accurate. Any newcomer chosen by the Beta group would become a superstar in less than 5 years, as long as they signed a contract. Among them, they created the most new martial arts stars and singers in the entertainment industry. They were famous in half of the empire and had great influence in the Federation. Ji Qinxue's peerless elegance was the best in the country. Everyone, regardless of age or gender, admired this national goddess. To a certain extent, her rallying power was even greater than that of Wen Yang, the head of state of the empire's higher-ups. Of course, such an important guest was worthy of Guan Xinxing's personal greeting. Ding Ming suddenly grabbed Lan Bing's hand. Don't use your telekinesis vision. Why? Lan Bing turned around in shock. She was almost ready to scan this goddess. There's a world of difference between the images on TV and in real life. Ding Ming was expressionless. She also has applied telekinesis, and her level is not low. You will be exposed if you use your telekinesis vision. Lan Bing was secretly shocked. She had only heard of Ji Qinxue's beauty, but she had never heard of her being a telekinesis warlock. However, Lan Bing did not doubt her husband's judgment. Ding Ming's foresight was also top-notch. If he said that the other party was a warlock, then there was no way he was wrong. At this time, Guan Xinxing had already helped Ji Qinxue to stand at the bottom of the escalator. He smiled apologetically. Everyone, I am very sorry for leaving you all to greet an important guest. But now, no one will blame me for being rude, right? Who would blame him at this moment? They would be wild with joy. If you knew that you were going to greet Goddess Ji, you would have told us in advance so that we could be mentally prepared. At least go to the bathroom and redo your hair. What if the goddess took a fancy to you? Wouldn't that be a good story for eternity? In fact, all the men present had this kind of wishful thinking. They were always fantasizing about the beautiful woman's love and wealth. The probability of this happening was not zero, but it was extremely low. This was because ever since Ji Qinshue's debut, there had never been a single scandal. Wen Yang's previous celestial monarch was once a powerful figure in the Nuoxing Empire. He was elegant in his command and was famous for his fighting prowess. He had publicly pursued Ji Qinshue, but was directly rejected. If even the sovereign Star Lord was in such a predicament, the rest of the people should not even dream about it. They could only look at her and not even fantasize about her. This was because Ji Qinshue was the kind of person who was so noble that no one was willing to think in the direction of blasphemy. Guan Xinqing turned to Ji Qinshue and said with a smile, "Ji Zong, since you've come to my humble abode, why don't you say a few words to everyone?" His words were very well spoken, showing that his relationship with Ji Qinshue was not distant. At the same time, he did not let go of the other party's hand. This detail was caught by Xian Jiao in the distance. On the surface, Xian Jiao's expression was a little unnatural, but Ding Ming could sense that Xian Jiao's heart was probably exploding with anger. But so what? Could she be compared to Ji Qinshue? They might not even have the qualifications to be discussed together. At most, her identity as the third concubine of an official's family was barely enough to be mentioned. It seemed that Guan Xinqing's ambition was not small. He did not dare to say that he had designs on Goddess Ji, but he definitely had other intentions. Ding Ming was secretly amused. If he were to go up there, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand this kind of peerless charm, right? He was still in a daze when he suddenly realized that Lan Bing was coldly glaring at him. "Are all men like you big pig trotters?" Ding Ming could only droop his eyelids and remain silent. At this time, Ji Qinshue slightly circulated his origin energy, and the temperature in the hall rose quite a bit. However, the guests did not feel hot at all. Instead, they felt as comfortable as a spring breeze. Ji Qinshue looked around the hall. Everyone was eagerly waiting. Ji Qinshue smiled slightly, paused for a moment, and then said, "Thank you, everyone." Just these 4 simple words made all the guests feel a beautiful and sincere aura wash over them. For a moment, the hall filled with applause, and it lasted for a long time. Lan Bing also sighed in admiration. She had always been proud of her beauty and temperament, but she really could not compare to Ji Qinshue. A simple thank you from him could cause such a stir. These guests were all upper-class people. If it weren't for the fact that they had to maintain their rationality, many of them would probably have gone crazy on the spot. However, Ding Ming's hearing and hearing were different from Lan Bing's. Ding Ming discovered that Ji Qinshue's voice was very pleasant to listen to. It was very mellow, very ethereal, and it felt like a clear spring flowing through one's heart. It was very easy to recognize, and it immediately filled one with a good impression of her. This was a familiar feeling. Under the infatuated and worshipful gazes of everyone present, Guan Xinqing led Ji Qinshue all the way to the northern platform. Ji Qinshue's aura was really powerful. The few military bigwigs on the platform consciously moved aside, leaving only Guan Xinqing and Ji Qinshue on the platform, chatting happily with each other. Because he could not use his telekinesis vision or the origin in his body, Ding Ming's origin perception could not hear the contents of their conversation. This was a bit unpleasant. Fortunately, someone was waving at him and Lan Bing from afar. Chapter 863. The person who waved was Xian Jiao. Ding Ming and Lan Bing had no choice but to go over obediently. "Madam, what can I do for you?" Lan Bing was very perceptive. She also saw through the trick. A distinguished guest like Ji Qinshue had come to visit, but Xian Jiao, as Guan Xinqing's nominal wife, did not go over. There is only one explanation for this. Not only was she jealous, but she was also angry. On the stage, Guan Xinqing seemed to have changed into a different person. He kept talking with assurance, while Goddess Ji stood there with a smile. It would be strange if Guan Xinqing did not have any ulterior motives. Of course, as a rich lady, Xian Jiao had deep self-restraint. She said slowly, "Ancestral Gragon, I remember that your main business in the past 2 years is still in Beidou, right?" Beidou was not the Beidou she was referring to. She was referring to Beidou. Ding Ming had long been familiar with this information. He replied respectfully, "Thanks to Madam and young Master Yi's help, Beiyun Group has already accepted some transportation orders in the Empire." Xin Jiao nodded. "You're doing well. I am very optimistic about you. Transfer all your main business to the Empire this year." Ding Ming's face lit up. "Thank you for your care, madam." "Thank you." Xin Jiao waved her hand. "You don't have to be so courteous. You found a good wife. Xiao Fei is really considerate." What she meant was that she was optimistic about Ding Ming, not because Ding Ming was good, but because Ding Ming was talented. Of course, there was no such thing as a free lunch in the world. Ding Ming also knew that there must be a powerful follow-up for her to be so generous. Sure enough, Xin Jiao turned to look at Lan Bing. "Xiao Fei, Ancestral Gregon's trip to the Congress this time is actually equivalent to a member of Chuang, you going to the capital to experience the world. Brother Qing has the final say in all matters of Chuangyu. But this is not a small matter because it is also important to you. You should pay a visit to Brother Qing and at least get to know him." If the real Ancestral Gregon heard this, he would probably jump 8 feet high with joy. In the past 3 years, Ancestral Gregon and Chuangyu had established contact, mainly through Shangguan, Xin Jiao's wife route. Ancestral Gregon could cater to Shangguan Yi, and Sophie could cater to Xin Jiao's preferences. Strictly speaking, Ancestral Gregon was on Xin Jiao's side, but people with a little bit of brains knew that the wife route was just a shortcut, not the ultimate goal. In the end, he had to climb up the big tree, Shangguan Xinqing, that was Ancestral Gregon's real goal. Therefore, although Ancestral Gregon could occasionally see Guan Xinqing during these 3 years of painstaking planning, he did not have a chance to communicate with him at close range. After all, his identity was really not up to par with these big shots. Now, Xin Jiao was giving him such a chance. However, Ding Ming and Lan Bing were clear in their minds. This was not a chance. She was letting him out like a dog to bite others. Of course, she was not really biting him. She was trying to disrupt Guan Xinqing and Ji Qinxue to express her dissatisfaction with Xin Jiao. This was a beautiful move. If he managed to disrupt them, he would undoubtedly make a great contribution and seize the opportunity. However, if he was mercilessly kicked off the stage, it would not be Xin Jiao's business. Damn, this be *TCH. Ding Ming cursed in his heart. Lan Bing was silent. Then, she said, "Hubby, Guanzong is our boss. You must respect him." "Understood, honey." Ding Ming also knew that Lan Bing was hinting to him that he should not offend the 2 big shots on the stage. According to Ding Ming's usual style of doing things, this was undoubtedly a huge test for him. Therefore, under everyone's gaze, Ding Ming walked to the opposite reception platform alone. He came to Guan Xinqing and bowed his head politely. "Guanzong, Ancestral Gregon of Beiyun, is here to visit you. I wish you a happy family with many grandchildren." Not only was Guan Xinqing stunned by his interruption, but Ji Qinxue was also stunned. Who was this person? There were so many famous people around, but they did not dare to interrupt. But he dared to come alone. He was brave. As for Beiyun, what was that? Guan Xinqing looked at Ding Ming. "I know you. Ancestral Gregon of Beiyun Group, Xiaoyi's friend. This time, it was Yao Yao who arranged for you to go to the capital, right?" Ding Ming immediately raised his vigilance. Guan Xinqing was indeed a big shot. He even knew a marginalized small figure like Ancestral Gregon, which proved that he knew everything about Chuangyu. Only such a meticulous person could be the boss of a super consortium. Ding Ming replied respectfully, "It's all thanks to you. I want to have a chance to visit you in person, so I took the liberty to come here." His answer was flawless, but Guan Xinqing glanced at Xin Jiao. This kind of trick could only be played by women. It was child's play that he disdained to play. "Ha!" Guan Xinqing showed a kind smile. "Do well in the capital. I have faith in you." Ding Ming said, "Thank you, boss." At this time, Ji Qinxue finally said, "Guanzong has spent a lot of money in the past 2 years. Senators and deputies have all been sent there. Many people in Chuangyu." Guan Xinqing smiled modestly. Zong, you must be joking. What I did was just a small matter. I can't compare to your beta group. The masters on your side are the real face of the empire. I personally strongly support the government's recuperation and reduction of taxes. You know, I have always been against war and riots, Ji Chinshua said sweetly. I've always respected Guanzong in this aspect as well. Beta Group has also followed the Empire's strategic retreat from the front lines over the past 2 years. They have also gradually withdrawn a lot of their armed forces. There shouldn't be any more battles in the near future. There was a lot of information in this kind of conversation between big shots, but Ding Ming's real identity was also at the level of a big shot. Naturally, he could understand what Ji Chinshua was trying to say. The military strategic retreat from the fertile chalk star system meant that there would be no more large-scale battles to be fought. In fact, this was not a good thing for Chuanyu. Guan Xinqing said that he did not support war, but the Chuanyu needed war and conflict to find energy and create wealth. This was a paradox in itself. Guan Xinqing smiled again. Zong, I don't know if you've noticed, but 3 years ago, ruler Wenyang went on an expedition to the fertile chalk star system and personally eradicated the evil forces in outer space. After he came back, he seemed to have changed a lot. Ji Qinshue's beautiful eyes turned. Guanzong, please enlighten me. Guan Xinqing said meaningfully. Ruler Wenyang has always been very hardline in his political views and insisted on fighting against the Frog Tribe army. However, since 3 years ago, the ruler rarely appeared in public and did not say anything. The military, on the other hand, has been retreating bit by bit. This doesn't seem to make sense, does it? Ji Qinshue smiled. I don't know much about military matters, but the Congress and the military have their own think tanks. They also made strategic decisions based on various information, right? Guan Xinqing smiled. Zong, Chuangyu's new round of financing for your group can be considered as doing our best as friends, right? It's not easy for you to come here, so you must have brought some news, right? When he heard this, Ding Ming should have taken his leave. However, when he heard that it was about ruler Wenyang, he refused to move. Ji Qinshue probably did not take a small figure like him seriously. He smiled and said, I also heard the news from other people. Guan Xinqing's posture was very humble. Please speak. Ji Qinshue pondered for a moment and said, It is said that Madame Yalan is pregnant this year, but this news is not very reliable. Guan Xinqing revealed a thoughtful expression. It seems that the higher-ups are no longer focused on government affairs. They're focused on taking care of the old and young at home. They might have thought that Ding Ming was still confused, but at this moment, Ding Ming was secretly shocked. This news was too shocking. The fake ruler made Zhong Yalan pregnant? He did not know where Wenyang was now, nor did he know whether he was dead or alive. If this news reached his ears, there would be an unprecedented bloodbath among the higher-ups of the Norse Empire. Ji Qinshue smiled again and said, It was not easy for her to be pregnant. This is something worth celebrating. Guanzong, you have a grandson again. This is even better. Guan Xinqing laughed heartily. Zong, you should work hard. I don't know where your ideal husband is. I'm waiting to eat wedding candy, and I'm waiting to acknowledge my adopted son or daughter. Ji Qinshue did not hesitate. He smiled generously and said, I hope you will come soon. I have waited for many years. Guan Xinqing said calmly, Soon? You'll be here very soon. Zong, don't worry. Ji Qinshue did not know how to respond to this double entendre. She glanced at Zhuan, then turned to Ding Ming. Mr. Zhu, congratulations in advance on entering the parliament. Ding Ming replied calmly. Thank you, Zong. This is all thanks to the boss and Madam's love. This was supposed to be a proper reply, but he dragged out the word Madam a little. He refused to believe that Guan Xinqing would not be able to read between the lines. As expected, Guan Xinqing smiled apologetically at Ji Qinshue. Zong, please take a rest. I will excuse myself for a moment. Ji Qinshue returned the gesture. Guanzong, please. Guan Xinqing quickly left the stage. As expected, he walked in the direction of Xinjiao. As soon as Guan Xinqing left, Ji Qinshue said to Ding Ming, You were sent here by the third madam, weren't you? She had always been smiling, even now. However, when she said those words, Ding Ming immediately felt a chill run down his spine. This Ji Qinxue was no weakling. Not only was she powerful, but she was also very perceptive. She could basically guess the reason behind your every move. Ding Ming said apologetically, "Sorry for the intrusion, Jizong. We were just trying to make a living. It is not easy." His words were crude, but they were reasonable. Ji Qinxue did not care about the feelings of people like him. Whether or not you will be able to make it to the capital is still unknown. She seemed to be mumbling to herself, but Ding Ming understood the meaning behind her words. If Chancellor Wenyang can come back alive, why can't I make it to the capital alive? Ji Qinxue turned her head in surprise. She looked at Ding Ming with a strange gaze. She realized that she could not see through this ancestral Graygon. He did not seem like a small fry who only knew how to curry favor with those in power. "I misjudged you. It seems that Mr. Zhu has a wide network of information channels." Ding Ming smiled modestly. "It's not what Jizong thinks. I've just been doing business in outer space for many years, so I know a few friends from all walks of life. They might have heard some anecdotes about outer space, but those are just hearsay." Ji Qinxue was still smiling, but her eyes were no longer smiling. "May I ask which of Mr. Zhu's friends you're talking about?" Ding Ming's smile suddenly disappeared. He stared at her and said, "Are you sure you want to know?" Ji Qinxue was shocked. She had not felt this way for many years. The other party was actually able to suppress her in terms of aura. In the entire Norse Empire, even Chancellor Wenyang had to be polite when speaking to her. Of course, this did not mean that Ding Ming was not polite, but Ding Ming's rhetorical question was just too oppressive. Only someone with absolute confidence would dare to ask such an aggressive question. The problem was, where did this small fry called Ancestral Graygon get his confidence from? Chapter 864. The reception hall was still bustling with activity, and the atmosphere was still natural and peaceful. However, none of the nobles dared to approach the stage. Ji Qinxue stood there like an orchid in a deserted valley. It was supposed to be a pleasant sight, but Ding Ming refused to leave. It was a terrible sight to behold. At this moment, at least 7 or 8 families had already privately inquired about Ancestral Graygon's background. Ji Qinxue also sized up Ding Ming. She said graciously, "If it's convenient for you, Mr. Zhu, please tell me. If it's not convenient for you, just pretend I didn't ask." Ding Ming said, "There's nothing convenient about it. My friend's surname is Ding." Ji Qinxue's expression didn't change. People at her level wouldn't easily write their thoughts on their faces, but people at her level could also understand with a hint. There is only one VIP with the surname Ding, and that was the fugitive wanted by both the Holy Grail Federation and the Norse Empire. Ding Ming was a well-known name in the top circle. Anyone with a little bit of access to information would know that Ding Ming was the key to destroying the Hidden Front. However, for some reason, he had become a level 3A fugitive in the Empire. The key was that level 3A was extremely dangerous in the Empire. It was so dangerous that it could even threaten the Emperor himself. Ji Qinxue and the others weren't stupid enough to believe that Ding Ming had violated the Empire's laws. Instead, they believed that Ding Ming must have involved the interests of the Empire's top brass during the Rainforest incident. Currently, the top brass was led by Emperor Wenyang, and their backer was the colossus known as the Apocalypse Group. It was interesting that an expert like Ding Ming was on the opposing side of the Apocalypse Group. It turned out that Ancestral Graygon was one of Ding Ming's men. However, Ji Qinxue was very well educated, so she didn't ask why Ding Ming came to Chuangyu to run errands. Ji Qinxue slowly raised his right hand. With a flick of his white glove, an exquisite card appeared at his fingertips. "Mr. Zhu, if you ever come to the capital of Planet Norland, you are welcome to visit the Beidou Group." The craftsmanship of this name card was quite exquisite. It was as thin as a piece of colorful paper, but it was incomparably flexible. It could flow freely in the palm of one's hand like liquid. There was a faint fragrance on it, just like the fragrance emitted from Ji Qinshue's body. When you took this name card, it was as if you were touching Ji Qinshue's soft, jade-like hands. Thank you very much. Ding Ming took the name card and put it in the pocket of his suit jacket. Ji Qinshue's smile was as warm as a spring breeze. Mr. Zhu, I wish you a smooth journey and a bright future. Goodbye. CEO Ji. Ding Ming turned around and left in a carefree manner. This scene shocked everyone present. Ji Qinshue's name card wasn't something that just anyone could get their hands on. Those who had her name cards were either the most powerful or the most powerful. However, the world was just so strange. What kind of ability did this unknown ancestral Gragon have? He had only exchanged a few words with the great goddess, and she had actually given him a name card? This didn't make any sense at all. Looking at Ding Ming walking back from the reception platform with his head held high, Xin Jiao really liked Ding Ming. She even took the initiative to wave her hand. Ancestral Gragon, have a seat. Now, only Guan Xinqing and Xin Jiao were sitting on the sofa. The others were standing aside. Ding Ming chose to sit on the single sofa next to him. Xin Jiao was very happy. Xiaofei, sit down too. Don't just stand there. You feel so distant. Lan Bing was also very happy. After sitting down, she held Ding Ming's arm like a little bird. Xin Jiao looked at Guan Xinqing. Brother Qing, look at Ancestral Gragon and his wife. They're so loving wherever they go. How could Guan Xinqing not understand her stupid hint? Guan Xinqing smiled and said, Yao Yao, in the future, don't make things difficult for Ancestral Gragon and his wife. How big is Ancestral Gragon's Beiyan group? It wasn't easy for him to accumulate some money. If you ask him to show off in front of Jizong, he will laugh his head off if he overreaches himself. What he said was truly impressive. What he meant by making a fool of oneself was saying the wrong thing, and the consequence was not laughing your head off, but suffering an unexpected calamity. His words were of a high standard. Not only did it show that he knew what they were playing at, it also showed enough respect to Xin Jiao and appeased Ancestral Gragon Sophie, further improving their relationship. Guanlin's father was really a powerful person. Ding Ming secretly made a judgment. At this time, Lan Bing definitely had to come out to smooth things over. She stood up and bowed. Thank you for your care, boss, and thank you for your support. Mr. and I will work hard in the capital and live up to your expectations. This was a show of loyalty. Xin Jiao smiled and said, Xiaofei, sit down and talk. Guan Xinqing was also a little interested in Ding Ming. Ancestral Gragon, what did you talk about with Jizong just now? Jizong also gave you a business card. He was a little jealous because even he did not have Ji Qinshue's business card. With his wealth and status, he was definitely qualified to have Ji Qinshue's personal business card. But why didn't Ji Qinshu give it to him? The reason was simple. He actually had feelings for Ji Qinshu. In other words, any normal man would have feelings for Ji Qinshu. Guan Xinqing wanted to flirt with her, and Ji Qinshu knew that Guan Xinqing was flirting with her. She could choose to ignore or eliminate anyone who tried to flirt with her, but she could not do the same with Guan Xinqing. She could neither reject nor accept Guan Xinqing's advances. She could not afford to offend Guan Xinqing too much, nor could she let him have his way. Thus, she did not even give him her business card. This was her way of rejecting him. Ding Ming had expected Guan Xinqing to ask this question when he came down. I made quite a few friends on planet Beidou. Jizong knows some of them. Angel chimed in at this crucial moment. That's right. Uncle Zhu knows a lot of powerful people on planet Beidou. I've met Big Boss Su before. In her mind, if even someone as powerful as Ding Ming was Su Xia's subordinate, then Su Xia must be a heaven-defying existence. As for who this Big Boss Su was, Guan Xinqing could not possibly ask in this situation. He simply nodded with a smile. Ancestral Gragon, do your best. I'll say the same thing again. I have high hopes for you. Lan Bing was the best at acting. She immediately turned to look at Xin Jiao with wide eyes. Xin Jiao quickly came to the rescue. Brother Qing, look at how scared they are. Guan Xinqing laughed heartily. It's just a small matter. I won't take it to heart. This was no small matter. Guan Xinqing had been the one picking up girls, and Ding Meng had interrupted him. More importantly, this was a good opportunity for him to get close to Ji Chenxue, but in the end, the limelight had been stolen by Ding Meng. It would be strange if Guan Xinqing didn't hold a grudge against this. However, he couldn't bring himself to take it to heart, because Ancestral Gregon wasn't qualified for him to take it to heart. After this episode, the atmosphere in the hall seemed to have returned to normal. Ji Chenxue didn't stay for too long. Not long after, she was sent off by Guan Xinqing and his wife. As soon as she left, the atmosphere in the hall took a turn for the worse, making people feel bored. After the luncheon, the guests left one after another. Ding Meng and Lan Bing first said goodbye to Guan Xinqing and his wife, and then Ding Meng went to say goodbye to Guan Yi. The two of them were ready to leave for the capital immediately. However, on the way to the helipad, there was someone waiting for them next to the Bluebird flying car. This person was Guan Xinqing's personal bodyguard, the young man. Of course, Ding Meng didn't believe that he was really a young man. This person must have cultivated some kind of youth-preserving cultivation method so that he could maintain the figure and appearance of a young man. It was very rare for men to cultivate youth-preserving cultivation methods, but this young man was really handsome. His eyebrows were sharp and his eyes were bright, and he was full of energy. However, there was a coldness between his eyebrows. After Yuan Sheng started the flying car, the young man and Ding Meng sat in the back, while Lan Bing sat in the front seat. The two of them had a tacit understanding. They knew that before they left, the Guan family would definitely give them some instructions. This young man was obviously here to tell them these things. Ding Meng smiled and stretched out his hand. "Little brother, how should I address you?" The young man said coldly, "You don't deserve to know." Ding Meng had no choice but to withdraw his hand awkwardly, but the smile still hung on his face. The young man suddenly said, "Do you know why the boss chose you to go to Congress?" Ding Meng asked modestly, "Please enlighten me." The young man said, "First, your status is low, so you won't attract too much attention. Second, the boss knows that you've been active in Beidou for many years, so you know a lot of unorthodox people. Third, you have spies in the Hubauer's family. The boss hopes that you can make good use of them." The young man's logic was clear, and his words were direct. He didn't say anything unnecessary. Ding Meng said in a low voice, "What kind of effect does the boss want me to achieve?" The young man looked at Ding Meng with slight surprise. He didn't expect this ancestral Gregon to be so perceptive. "There are 3 things you need to do on this trip. First, that Zhong guy is also planting deputies in Congress. You need to find out who they planted. Second, no one has been able to find out the reason behind the grand strategic retreat plan of Congress. It's best if you can find out the reason, but it's not your fault if you can't, because you won't be able to get into the upper echelons of the empire. Third, the boss has always been anti-war. As a subordinate, you'd better understand this." He didn't expect Ding Meng to understand these words. He had seen too many bumpkins like Ding Meng. He didn't even expect Ding Meng to come back alive. However, Ding Meng suddenly understood a lot. At least he knew part of Guan Xinqing's thoughts. First, Chuan Yu had already begun to suspect Wen Yang of being in the upper echelons of the empire. Why did they retreat so much? Second, Guan Xinqing seemed to be against the war on the surface, but in fact this cunning old man strongly supported it. It was just that he couldn't say it out loud. Chuan Yu arranged for him to go to Congress, which was actually similar to his real intention. The young man said coldly, "There's one last thing I want to remind you. You'd better not be in the limelight like you did at the banquet today. Otherwise, no one will be able to protect you." After saying this, he suddenly opened the car door and jumped out of the car. Lan Bing looked back at Ding Meng. Ding Meng smiled and said, "That's a warning to me. Guan Xinqing really does have designs on Ji Chenxue." Chapter 865. The capital of the Norse Empire was located in planet Norse 1. This was the core of the entire empire. This was a grand and magnificent city. Looking down from the sky, one could see countless skyscrapers rising from the ground and soaring into the clouds. As the spaceship descended, one would realize that the buildings were connected to each other. Between the huge buildings, there were connecting tunnels, circular tunnels, and space tunnels to fill in the gaps. And this was just the middle-class residential area of the capital. Just like the holy tree on Planet Poison Hazard, the tree, branches, leaves, roots, vines, and vines were whole. The richer the citizen, the higher they would be able to live. As for the commoners on the ground, they could not even see a trace of sunlight all year round. Other than the residential areas, the capital was also divided into many functional areas. The commercial area, the industrial area, the military area, the entertainment area, the administrative area, the slums, the trade area, the martial arts area, the school area, the port area, the tourist area. Every area was filled with all kinds of strange buildings. Not only was it wonderful and spectacular, but it was also huge. Even if one looked down from the sky, the city was an existence that one could not see the horizon. Below the surface, there was an even bigger underground city. It was 1,200 stories deep. That was the area where many low-level citizens were active. The space above and below the surface was enough to show the vastness of the empire's capital. It was like a huge machine that operated with precision. It was even more like a colorful steel wall in space. It was truly awe-inspiring. Planet Norse's capital was a steel jungle world that accommodated a population of 13 billion. The permanent population was 8 billion, the floating population was 4 billion, and the remaining 1 billion was the reserve power for the military and education. The famous star of the Empire University and the revered martial arts hall were both located here. The strength of the empire was evident from this. Ding Meng and his group first flew to the International Space Station in space. Then, they took a train and landed at the port area. This port area was very interesting. There were many floating ports that were built 1,000 meters above the ground. They were like giant silver plates. All the trains that landed from the space station had to stop at the port area. Tourists could only leave on various small flying units after they got out. Tens of thousands of flying cars, shuttles, trains, and transport vehicles could be seen scattered around the capital like fairies scattering flowers. It was a beautiful sight. When they arrived at Port 23, Ding Meng and Lan Bing switched to the designated flying car and headed to the capital's administrative area. This area was not located in the center of the city. Instead, it was located at the edge of a lake in the northeastern corner of the capital, near the outskirts. The lake covered an area of several 100,000 square meters, and it was as blue as a mirror. All the structures in the administrative area were built around the lake. These buildings were not skyscrapers. Instead, they were mostly low-rise buildings similar to large theaters. The tallest building, the Parliament building, was only 30 stories high. The building was shaped like a cross between two daggers held together by a steel ring. This was the symbol of the Nuashing Empire. It represented the iron will of the empire's warriors. This was the center of power of the empire. All orders, laws, and decisions were made here. Under the blue sky and white clouds, the Capitol building shone brightly under the sunlight. Only when one arrived here could one feel the majesty of political power up close. The staff at the entrance of the building had already come up to greet them politely. After Ding Meng showed his work pass, he patiently explained, "Deputy members of the parliament can choose to stay in the designated hotel in the administrative district, or you can make your own arrangements." The so-called make your own arrangements was actually an unwritten rule. The members of the major factions all had their own financial backers, so they could choose to stay in their faction's sphere of influence. Lan Bing was already prepared for this. She immediately asked Yuan Sheng to drive them to a multi-purpose hotel on the west bank of the lake. This hotel was called Floating House, and it was more like a multi-purpose restaurant. It was only 5 stories high, and it was built in an ancient style. It was surrounded by mountains and rivers, and the scenery was very pleasant. It was a very popular place in the administrative district. Because the administrative district did not allow any entertainment venues, restaurants were often a good place for politicians to meet in private. This floating house happened to be one of Chuang Yu's businesses. When Ding Meng and Lan Bing arrived, they saw that the parking lot was filled with flying shuttles. It seemed that many people had already arrived here in advance. Tomorrow, the Parliament and the Senate would jointly hold a meeting to gather opinions on the new laws. The topic was about the empire's control over foreign trade. To put it bluntly, it was about the empire increasing its efforts to open up normal trade with other countries. This topic was very delicate. If one thought that it was just a routine meeting of the upper echelons of the empire, one would be wrong. Now that the war in the fertile chalk system had calmed down, it meant that the opportunity to mine resources had been greatly reduced. This had the biggest impact on Chuanyu. Now that the empire was going to open up trade with other countries, who had the biggest chance? Of course, it was the Holy Grail Federation. Once a new opening was opened, the first to benefit would be the major financial groups. As they had the largest trading volume, this seemingly ordinary meeting to gather opinions was actually very important. Politicians from all the major factions would come in advance, and this house on the water was undoubtedly an ideal place to gather. The staff of the hotel naturally knew about Ding Meng and Lan Bing's identities, so they had already prepared a luxurious suite for them. After the two of them settled down, they went to the buffet restaurant on the second floor. The restaurant's decor was very elegant, and there were booth seats everywhere. The customers gathered in groups of 2 or 3, holding wine glasses and chatting in low voices. Ding Meng and Lan Bing chose a seat by the window and sat down. Lan Bing went to the ordering area to take care of the dishes. After sitting down, Ding Meng observed his surroundings. Most of the men and women here were ordinary people with the status of politicians. They were all older, but they were all wearing suits and looked quite energetic. Of course, there was no lack of origin ability users among them. Occasionally, there would be an old man with a bodyguard, and these bodyguards were quite strong. However, this was the capital's political district, so it was unlikely that a fight would break out. Moreover, the security here was top-notch. Humanoid robot patrols could be seen everywhere on the streets and riverbanks. Ding Meng looked around for a while before his gaze fell on a booth far away. He saw 2 men and a woman chatting happily over there. The men were handsome and sharp, and the women were also beautiful. They didn't look like girls from ordinary families. Lan Bing walked over with 2 trays of food. When she saw Ding Meng's expression, she couldn't help but ask curiously, "You know them?" Ding Meng definitely knew them, because the handsome young man was Roger, General Ross's son and Chu Xiaoqing's loyal fan. He didn't know the 2 beauties, but seeing how Roger was flirting with them, he guessed that their relationship wasn't simple. Lan Bing laughed. "You're in a good mood, aren't you? You're actually in the mood to watch people flirt." Ding Meng smiled and shook his head. He could roughly guess what was going on. The real Chancellor Wenyang had a lot of trust in Anvil Group. Although it wasn't a first-class group, Chu Xiaoqing started her career in the military because of it. However, Chu Xiaoqing had been shelved for the past 2 years, so the Chu family naturally didn't have much influence. A person like Roger would definitely not pursue a woman with no future, so it was normal for him to flirt with other beauties here. The relationship between a man and a woman was just that. Ding Meng saw it very clearly. Whether it was love or not, you had to at least seek 1 or 2 benefits, right? Roger had pursued Chu Xiaoqing because the Luo family was interested in Chu Xiaoqing's future. Such a young major general had a bright future. However, now that Chu Xiaoqing was treated coldly, it was normal for Roger to fall in love with someone else. Besides, Chu Xiaoqing wasn't some kind of beauty. After watching for a while, Ding Meng seemed to be bored and turned to admire the beautiful scenery of the lake outside. At this time, a luxurious blue-bird flying car slowly landed in the parking lot. This immediately attracted everyone's attention. Everyone knew that the government district wasn't a place for rich people to show off their wealth. Even if the people who came here were important, they were particular about keeping a low profile. Very few people dared to land in a luxurious car directly. However, everyone also noticed a small detail. The hotel staff and the Congress staff were already waiting in the parking lot to welcome the person. The person who came was definitely someone important. Lan Bing was a little expectant. "Chancellor Wenyang?" Ding Meng immediately denied. "Definitely not." "Why?" Ding Meng said. "Based on my understanding of him, he wouldn't be so ostentatious. The boss of the Hidden Front wouldn't expose himself to the public so openly unless he had no other choice. The car door was quickly pulled open, and a beautiful white-collar woman in a lady's suit walked out. She was generous, confident, and beautiful. She had a strange charm. Even Roger stopped joking and looked at this beautiful woman curiously. This woman couldn't be considered beautiful, but the more one looked at her, the more one would be attracted to her. Lan Bing was surprised. Why is she in the Empire? Ding Meng was also a little surprised because this beautiful woman was an old acquaintance of his, the CEO of the Holy Grail Federation's Starbow Group, Transit String. Transit String's aura had always been strong. In terms of generosity and confidence, she wasn't inferior to Ji Qinxue. As soon as she got out of the car, she walked towards the hotel entrance in high spirits with her head held high. Behind her was her beautiful secretary, Jin Xiaoyan. Behind Jin Xiaoyan were two middle-aged men in black suits. Their faces were covered by large sunglasses, so their faces couldn't be seen clearly. Lan Bing smiled. I've realized that beautiful women have one thing in common, and that is that they have extremely long legs. Ling Xingxian did indeed have long legs, especially in her one-step skirt and black stockings. When she walked, she was especially eye-catching under the sunlight. Lan Bing was originally teasing Ding Meng, but Ding Meng's attention wasn't on Transit String. He had a thoughtful look on his face. What's wrong? Lan Bing was curious. Ding Meng said seriously, those two in black suits should be bodyguards. That's about right. Lan Bing agreed. Ding Meng sighed. My guess is that you can beat any one of them in a one-on-one fight. However, when the two of them work together, your chances of winning are less than 30%. Lan Bing was shocked. Are you sure you're not joking? Ding Meng said. Do I look like I'm joking? After a long while, Lan Bing sighed. Did we underestimate Xing Hong and Sheng Hao? Ding Meng's face was expressionless. I'm afraid so. Lan Bing said, wow, looks like it's going to be interesting again. Chapter 866. The meeting was held in the capital as scheduled. The conference room on the 5th floor was similar to a beehive. Thousands of senators and politicians from various continents sat in their prearranged seats. In the center of the room was a 3D screen displaying all kinds of graphics and data for reference. Ding Meng was arranged to sit near the entrance of Area B. This position showed that his role here was dispensable. Besides, he had no interest in this kind of meeting. Most of the time, some politicians volunteered to walk up to the podium and give various eloquent speeches. The scene looked lively, but it was actually boring. Ding Meng scanned the room and did not see any important people in the room today. First of all, Chancellor Wen Yang was not here. Second of all, Ross and the other big shots were not here either. Instead, there was only Transit String sitting alone in the front row. She just sat there quietly, watching the senators go up to the podium to give their speeches. She did not make any slight movements, nor did she show any changes in her expression. This person was like a statue. However, Ding Meng could tell that Transit String had come all the way to the Empire. She must have heard the news in advance. She knew that the Empire was going to open up foreign trade this time. The Starbow Group would not give up this great opportunity. In fact, many people had made such an assumption. If the large financial groups of the Federal Empire worked together, it would not be a problem for them to create at least one or two projects of extraordinary scale, even if they did not cause much of a stir. Transit String was sitting here today. It was obvious that she was waiting for the results of the meeting. She wanted to discuss cooperation with the people of the Empire. And the people who could discuss cooperation with her were definitely not ordinary people. This boring meeting went on for an entire day. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the central screen showed the results of all the votes. 782 votes in favor, 356 votes in abstention, and 98 votes against. The law was basically passed. When the time came, it would officially take effect after Chancellor Wen Yang signed it. Seeing this result, Transit String got up and walked out of the room without saying anything. Once she left, Ding Meng would definitely not stay put. He would follow her quietly. As expected, the transit string led her back to the Water Family Hotel. This time, she chose to dine in the restaurant on the second floor. At the moment, there were not many customers in the restaurant. Only a few tables were occupied. However, when Ding Ming came in, she noticed something was wrong. These people were definitely important. The reason was very simple. Roger was still here, but today, he did not have those women around him. Ding Ming continued to walk towards the window. Lan Bing had been waiting for him here for an entire day. As soon as he sat down, he received a telepathic message from Lan Bing. These 4 tables are occupied by representatives from the Apocalypse, Beidou, Fengyin, and Blue Star families. They're all waiting for the results of the meeting and the transit string. Ding Ming smiled and said, "These large consortiums are really well informed. They probably already knew about the results." Lan Bing explained, "Sister Yin and the others have already investigated. This Blue Star group emerged in the past 2 years. They have the shadow of a big shot in the military behind them." Ding Ming said, "Obviously, Roger is the representative." Lan Bing said, "But no one from Chuanyu came." Ding Ming said, "Guan Xinqing has never liked to deal with other consortiums." Lan Bing said, "But aren't we the representatives of Chuanyu?" Ding Ming laughed and said, "Even if we are the representatives, we can't make decisions for Chuanyu." While the two of them were secretly communicating, a young man in a suit had already walked to the transit strings table elegantly. "Hello, Mr. Ling. I'm Luo Anshu, the assistant of the executive vice president of Apocalypse Group. You can call me Luo." His demeanor and attitude could be said to be very polite. However, the one who answered him was Jin Xiaoyan. "Hello, Assistant Luo. I'm Jin Xiaoyan, Mr. Ling's secretary. I'm very happy to meet you. You can call me Xiaoyan." Jin Xiaoyan was actually very sweet. Her blonde wavy hair, coupled with her professional attire, made her look quite charming. However, she had been with the transit string for a long time and was completely overshadowed by the transit string sharpness. However, at this moment, she was sincere and generous, which made her look particularly outstanding. This young man, named Luo Anshu, actually blushed a little, especially when she took the initiative to reach out to him. When he held her hand, he immediately felt that his hand was filled with a soft and warm jade. For a moment, his heart was in turmoil and his face was flushed red. Ding Ming couldn't help but laugh. It seems that Apocalypse Group has already failed halfway. Lan Bing said, "He's still too young." Ding Ming smiled and said, "That's not the reason. The dignified CEO came to the Empire, but Apocalypse Group sent an assistant of the executive vice president to negotiate. Jin Xiaoyan is still answering him. It's completely out of courtesy." Sure enough, the second person who walked to the transit strings booth was different. Although this person was also a young man and couldn't be said to be elegant, he went straight to the point. "Hello, Secretary Jean. My name is Zhong Lifeng. I'm the representative of the Fengyin Group. I believe that our two families will have a consensus on the development of the Rainforest series." This Zhong Lifeng was obviously much smarter than Luo Anshu. He knew that the transit string had come to the Empire with great difficulty, so he wouldn't waste time and energy on the ways of the world. He was here for the cooperation. To put it bluntly, businessmen all value benefits. Benefits were the way of a king. Sure enough, the transit string raised his head slightly and revealed a smile. "Secretary Zhong, please take a seat." Zhong Lifeng was overjoyed and immediately sat down on the side of the booth. However, Jin Xiaoyan was still discussing the specific matters with the two of them. The third person came quickly. This time, it was a beautiful woman. She also had long hair and was dressed like an office lady. She said with a sweet smile, "CEO Ling, I'm Xiao Qian from the Beidou Group's headquarters. As Ji Zong hasn't returned to the capital for the time being, he specially asked me to come and receive you. Our group has admired your name for a long time. I hope that you can stay for a few more days. Ji Zong wants to visit you personally when he comes back." She wasn't very good herself, but Ji Qinshue's name was like thunder to her ears. She even said that she wanted to visit the transit string personally. This was not a disrespect, but a great respect. The transit string finally revealed a charming smile. "Thank you, Miss Xiao. Please take a seat." As soon as Xiao Qian sat down, Roger, who was in the distance, couldn't stay still. He also walked over with a smile on his face. "CEO Ling, Secretary Jean, nice to meet you. I'm Roger." He didn't care about the transit string's reaction and sat down directly. The other three families were a little puzzled. "You're really something? They didn't ask you to sit, but you took the initiative to sit. You're really thick-skinned." On the other hand, Ding Meng was secretly amused. It was clearly Ling Xingxian who had come to seek cooperation, but in the end, it was the other way around. It felt like Ling Xingxian was the one who was in high demand, and everyone wanted to fight for him. However, Ding Meng also admired this. The transit string had this kind of aura and ability. "Which family do you think Xinghong will choose?" Lan Bing asked. Ding Meng smiled. "This must be the initial contact. The transit string can't make a decision on such an occasion. These four families are all influential." His judgment was completely correct. The transit string had done its homework before coming. The Apocalypse Group was the largest financial group in the empire, and the daughter of the CEO was the wife of the current head of state. No one dared to underestimate this. However, only sending a deputy CEO's assistant was a little disrespectful. Although the Fengyin Group was ranked 4th, its channels of information were very extensive, and it was also in existence that couldn't be underestimated. However, as the old saying went, if the CEO didn't show up personally, it would seem that his sincerity wasn't enough. The Beta Group was needless to say. Ji Qinshua's reputation as Goddess Ji Zong was too well known. Moreover, Xiao Qian had explained very clearly that Ji Zong wasn't back yet. Once he was back, he would definitely meet with you. The Blue Star Group, represented by Roger, was the weakest among the four families in terms of financial resources. However, the person behind them was a general of the empire. This was the real reason why they were so confident. They didn't even bother to exchange pleasantries. In fact, the transit string wanted to meet with Chuangyu the most. She had done her research on Chuangyu before coming here. Unfortunately, she couldn't find any connections with Guan Xinqing, so she had no choice but to come to the capital of planet Nuashing first. The transit string will definitely meet with the Blue Star first. Ding Meng suddenly came to a conclusion. Lan Bing was stunned. "Why?" Ding Meng said, "It's very simple. Based on the current situation, the Blue Star Group is the first to meet with the person in charge." Ding Meng's predictions were rarely wrong. After some discussion, Roger spoke up decisively. "CEO Ling, my father is now in the capital city. He has been admiring you for a long time. If it's convenient for you, you can come over tonight. Let's play host to you. What do you think?" At the end of the day, this was the most practical thing. So what if he was famous and powerful? If he really wanted to cooperate, he had to show his sincerity. Only by gathering the people in charge together could a chemical reaction be formed. The restaurant was soon empty. The transit string left with Roger. It was only when the flying cars of various sizes had taken off that Ding Meng said, "Wife, you should go with Sister Yin and Sister Yin. Go and meet up with Sister Yin and the others. Miss Dai and Sister Xia don't have to stay on planet TT-12 anymore. Everyone can come to the capital. Also, you can send Yuan Sheng away." Lan Bing knew that Ding Meng was preparing to act alone. She wanted to spend more time with Ding Meng, but from what she had seen and heard along the way, she understood that there were many experts in the empire. If she didn't want to be exposed early, it was best for her to act in secret. Only Ding Meng was the best at disguising himself. No one else could learn this. "Be careful," Lan Bing said with concern. Ding Meng nodded with a smile. "Don't worry. After all, there are only a few people who can really threaten me." Since he came into contact with the origin of the vortex in the land of entropy, Ding Meng's confidence had greatly increased. It could be said that if he did not encounter a large number of strong enemies, almost no one could compete with him in a one-on-one fight. Of course, this was based on the people who had come into contact with him. Seeing Roger and the others leave, Ding Meng was not in a hurry to chase after them because he discovered an interesting phenomenon. Luo Anxiu and Zhong Lifeng were standing together at the parking lot and discussing something. Xiao Qian, on the other hand, looked at them with some disdain before getting into the flying car and rising into the sky. Ding Ming sensed carefully and could not help laughing. He was worried that he could not find the Luo family. Now, these two hotheads were the best guides. Chapter 867. While Luo Anxiu and Zhong Lifeng were discussing in private, Ding Ming suddenly rushed over. The two of them were shocked. Who are you? Ding Ming smiled strangely. Are you two going to the Luo family's private house? Luo Anxiu immediately raised her vigilance. What do you want to do? Don't be nervous. Ding Ming took out the crystal card of the deputy and shook it. I'm the representative of Chuangyu. I came late just now, so I didn't see Manager Ling. This certificate was definitely not fake, and Ding Ming was telling the truth. Ding Ming had secretly used the mind-manipulating spell in the restaurant before, so it was normal that the two of them couldn't find him. Seeing that it was the representative of Chuangyu, the two of them were slightly relieved. Do you want to go too? Ding Ming definitely wanted to go, because he had already eavesdropped on the conversation between the two of them. The representatives of the two big groups were going to drive the flying car to the Luo family's private house and shamelessly wait for them to come out of the meeting before continuing to talk about cooperation. How is this the style of an assistant of a big group? It was completely the style of a salesman who was engaged in sales. How do you know? I used to be a salesman. Luo Anxiu looked surprised. The kind that specializes in selling property insurance. Ding Ming was secretly amused. It seemed that the Apocalypse group had no intention of cooperating at all. They could have just sent someone to deal with it, but this young man took it seriously. So the three of them walked together and got on Zhong Lifeng's fly car together. Ding Ming sat in the back row. Along the way, the two of them chatted nonstop. Their experiences were somewhat similar. When they were young, they suffered a lot. They both ran insurance on the street and engaged in pyramid schemes. In the end, they finally worked in a big group. These two people actually had a lot in common. Ding Ming, who was in the back row, was also secretly amazed. These ordinary clerks actually knew a lot of things. The flying car flew in the air for about 3 hours before slowly descending to the ground. At this moment, night had already arrived, and on a plain in the southern suburbs of the city, rows of luxurious villas could be seen with the naked eye. According to Zhong Lifeng's introduction, this was the private residence of the empire's influential figures, and the people who lived in this area were all high officials and dignitaries. Ding Ming scanned the area. The architectural style of this place was similar to that of the Han family's villa, but took up a lot more space. A single villa had a few square kilometers of land. In the capital of planet Nual, where every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, this was considered very luxurious. The Luo family's villa area was even more noble. It was not built on the ground, but on the top of a hill. The beautiful scenery around it could be seen at a glance. Of course, Zhong Lifeng's flying car could not park at the entrance of the villa, not even at the top of the mountain. He could only park at the designated public parking area at the foot of the mountain. Brother Luo, Brother Zhu, let's just wait here, Zhong Lifeng suggested. Are you sure this is the Luo family's private residence? Ding Ming asked suspiciously. Absolutely. Zhong Lifeng slapped his chest. I've been here before. The famous General Luo lives at the top of the mountain. Luo Anxiu also expressed his suspicions. You've been to the general's house. I've never been there. Zhong Lifeng's expression was a little unnatural. Luo Anxiu stared at him. If you haven't been there, then how do you know that General Luo lives at the top of the mountain? Zhong Lifeng was a little embarrassed. I've been here before, but I was stopped by security. I saw General Luo pass by. Luo Anxiu was speechless. You actually ran so far just to sell your products. Brother, you're very talented. You can achieve great things. While the two of them were debating, Ding Ming spread out his telekinesis vision. Unfortunately, he didn't see Luo Jie and the transit string because there was no sign of them on the entire mountain. However, Zhong Lifeng didn't speak carelessly. Ding Ming accurately captured Luo Jie's figure in a room in the villa at the top of the mountain. This old man seemed to have just finished bathing. He wore a luxurious bathrobe and was sitting on a deck chair on the balcony, smoking a cigar and tasting red wine. The AI on the coffee table was broadcasting the live broadcast of the Interstellar Warfare International League. This old man really knew how to enjoy himself. But the problem was, where did Luo Jie and the transit string go? Ding Ming couldn't care less. He pushed open the door and got out of the car. Brother Zhu, where are you going? Luo Anshu asked in alarm. This is a private residence. It's best if we don't wander around randomly. Ding Ming thought for a moment and said, I'm going to pee. I'll be back soon. Zhong Lifeng said, do you want toilet paper? I have too much on me. However, Ding Ming's figure had already disappeared into the boundless night. On the third-floor balcony of the Luo family's villa, Roth was still smoking and enjoying himself. The wristwatch on the coffee table suddenly vibrated, and an instant message quickly appeared. An old face appeared on the screen. This person was Brother Yuan from Rainforest Planet 1. He was also a general on a star, and was once the right-hand man of Chancellor Wen Yang. He was General Yuan Ta, who was in charge of the Empire's army. Brother Luo. Yuan Ta didn't stand on ceremony and went straight to the point. The results of the assembly meeting during the day have already been decided. The decree was passed with a high percentage of votes, and we're just waiting for the Chancellor to sign it. In addition, the Star Rainbow Group's transit string from the Federation has also arrived. Roth nodded. I know all of this. Yuan Tuo's expression was somewhat cold. But according to the information I have, your son has made an appointment with the transit string. He should have arrived at your residence by now. Roth was suddenly stunned. I've been waiting for Shao Jie, but he hasn't come back yet. Yuan Tuo sneered. Could it be that Shao Jie has made an appointment with CEO Ling to a hotel for a private exchange? Roth's face darkened. Yuan Tuo seemed to know what he was worried about. It seems that your son's brain is filled with lust again. You know, that's the transit string. Is that something he can touch? Roth obviously didn't want to dwell on this topic. He changed his words. When will the decree be sent to him to sign? Yuan Tuo's expression eased. We haven't seen him for several months. My preliminary judgment is that he's still cooped up in the headquarters of Apocalypse, sticking to his wife every day. Roth sighed. After a long time, he said, Brother, there's a question I don't know if I should ask or not. Our choice at the beginning, was it wrong? Yuan Tuo said lightly, It doesn't matter if it was wrong or right. What's the use of saying this now? Since you've boarded a pirate ship, you should have the awareness of being a pirate. Roth wanted to say something, but his Adam's apple kept moving and he couldn't say anything. Yuan Tuo continued, Hurry up and find your son who's filled with lust. Don't delay the business. After that, the communication was cut off. Roth was silent for a long time. Then he sighed deeply and reached for the wristband on the coffee table to inform Roger. At the moment when his fingers were about to touch the wristband, he suddenly bounced up as if he had been shot by an arrow. He turned around and looked into the room with an incredible look. There was a stranger in the luxurious and spacious dormitory for no reason. This person was Ding Ming in the image of the ancestral dragon. Ross suddenly calmed down. This general who had been through hundreds of battles was indeed experienced. He knew that it was useless to be alarmed. He used his perception again and found that the guards downstairs and all around were not alarmed. The sensor devices were also not triggered. This proved that the strength of the intruder was indeed terrifying. Hello, stranger, Roth said lightly. Ding Ming looked at him quietly and said in a deep voice, Long time no see. Roth was a little surprised. Do we know each other? Ding Ming said, Yes. Roth really couldn't remember where he had seen the pockmarked face of the ancestral dragon. Forgive me for not recognizing you, but I don't think I've seen you before. Ding Ming asked in return, Have you seen the real face of the leader of the Hidden Front? Roth immediately became alert. There were very few people who knew about the Hidden Front, but the person in front of him was obviously one of them. Who was the one who leaked this secret? Or was it Wen Yang or Ding Ming's subordinate? Roth said in a deep voice, It seems that Wen Yang and Ding Ming are still alive. Ding Ming said lightly, Their death won't do you any good. Roth said, Why do you say that? Ding Ming said, You'll only have a chance at survival if they're alive. If they're dead, you'll only die an even uglier death. Roth didn't say anything. He stared at Ding Ming like a tiger watching its prey, as if he was trying to figure out this person's weakness. Suddenly, his entire body disappeared, and an arc of electricity appeared in the bedroom. He hadn't actually disappeared, but Roth's movements were too fast for the naked eye to catch. The arc of electricity wasn't actually electricity, but rather the essence of origin energy that had been condensed from Palm Strike. If this origin energy had been released in the past, Ding Ming would have collapsed before he could even see it clearly. This wasn't just because of its speed, but also because Roth was able to condense origin energy into such a small amount. This was like condensing hundreds of drops of water into a single drop, and there was no fluctuation of origin energy. It was completely silent. This kind of technique couldn't be achieved without at least 100 years of hard work. In Roth's eyes, Ding Ming had already collapsed, kneeling on the ground and begging for mercy. It was time for him to interrogate him. But in the next instant, the arc of electricity disappeared without a trace, like a stream of water dispersing into the air. It was similarly untraceable. Ding Ming stood there without moving. Even the way he looked at Roth didn't change in the slightest. This was because in front of Ding Ming, an invisible vortex of origin energy had sucked in all of Roth's origin energy. This was the secret behind AIG's cultivation technique. Attacking Ding Ming was just a way for him to replenish his origin energy. At this moment, an indescribable chill rushed from the bottom of Roth's feet to the top of his head. His entire body instantly turned cold. He didn't know how many times he had braved through a hail of bullets on the battlefield, or how many times he had survived the attacks of secret techniques. But this time, the strength of the person in front of him made him feel despair. Sometimes, the meaning of a strong enemy was to give you pressure and motivation. One day, I will definitely be able to trample you under my feet. But there was a kind of enemy that wasn't like that. They gave you the feeling that no matter how hard you cultivated, I will always be in existence that you can only look up to. I can destroy you at any time. Ding Ming was such an enemy. Roth also stood there without moving. He wasn't as steady as Ding Ming, but he didn't dare to move at all. If he moved, he would be courting death. Chapter 868. The night was quiet, and the stars were shining brightly. The sounds of crickets from the grass downstairs could be heard clearly, but the room was filled with an oppressive atmosphere that could drive anyone crazy. Roth kept looking at Ding Ming. There were a few times when he really wanted to suddenly fly out from the balcony and call for the guards and robots, but his rationality told him not to be so reckless. If he did that, he would be killed before he even landed. He could only wait patiently for an opportunity. As long as Ding Ming was the slightest bit careless, he was confident that he could escape first. Sure enough, Ding Ming was the first to break this oppressive atmosphere. He slowly said, "You can still be saved." Oh, Roth was a little surprised. Ding Ming said, "If you had attacked me with all your strength just now, you would be a dead man now. You're very lucky to have saved yourself." These words dispelled all of Roth's hopes. The reason was simple. Ding Ming had already seen through everything about him. These words were even scarier than Ding Ming directly attacking him. For the first time in hundreds of years, Roth felt like a beautiful woman who had been stripped naked and had her body stared at. Ding Ming slowly walked forward, picked up the goblet on the coffee table, and took a sip. The wine is not bad. Of course it was good. This was a special red wine from the Norse Empire. A bottle was worth hundreds of thousands of star credits. Even if you had the money, you could not buy it. Only the high-ranking officials had the right to enjoy it. Roth still did not dare to move. Cold sweat had already soaked his bathrobe. Ding Ming sat down on the recliner. "Actually, you should feel lucky. What happened on Rainforest Planet 2 years ago was not a big deal to you. After all, you did not directly attack Head of State Wen Yang, and your past is not a big deal either. As long as I don't say anything, no one will know. You are still a general of the Empire." Roth said coldly, "What is your purpose, sir? Please tell me directly." Ding Ming said, "The few of you chose to cooperate with the Hidden Front. Do you regret it now?" He asked this question because he had heard the conversation between Ross and Yuan Ta. He didn't know what the other generals were thinking, but Ross's heart was obviously shaken. Ross looked a little dazed. Yes, Ding Ming said. Is it because of Gong Ping? Ross seemed to have made up his mind before he said, because we know that he was wronged. Ding Ming asked, then why don't you give him Bright Snow ordinary? Ross shook his head. It's impossible. There are too many interest groups involved in this. The Star-Lord's ascension of power means that the interests of Chuang Yu, Beidou, and Fengyin Group will be at the top. No one will be foolish enough to go against such a colossus. Ding Ming said, then why did you choose to work with the Hidden Front? Ross sighed. We're all hawks of the Empire. We don't advocate long-term peace with the Federation. Ding Ming understood. Gong Ping, Ross, Yuan Ta, and that Elder Zhang were all people who advocated war with the Federation. This explained why the Hidden Front could convince these veteran generals. Ding Ming looked at him. You can sit down and talk. Ross definitely didn't dare to sit across from Ding Ming. He chose the large bed in the bedroom. He even leaned his body against the pillow as if he was afraid of Ding Ming. Ding Ming laughed disdainfully. Looks like you still haven't given up. I've already tampered with the personal sensor device at the head of your bed. Even if you shout at the top of your lungs, the AI guards below won't be able to hear you. Ross couldn't speak again, but his face was as pale as a corpse. Ding Ming poured himself a full glass of wine. Your battle plan doesn't seem to be going well. 2 years have passed, and there's been no movement at all. Ross let out a long sigh. Maybe we're all wrong. Ding Ming asked, what's wrong? Ross sighed. After we returned from the fertile chalk system, Brother Gong didn't return. He still hasn't returned. Ding Ming said, with his crimes, he can't come back even if he wanted to. Ross said, even if he can't come back, we shouldn't have lost contact. We only found out later that when the Black Handprint took the Chancellor away on Planet 1, it was Ding Ming who went to the space station. He was killed by Ding Ming? Ding Ming asked without batting an eyelid. Ross nodded. That's the only explanation. Brother Gong was most likely killed by Ding Ming. Ding Ming said, looking at your expression, it seems like you're still not satisfied. Ross sighed. I just didn't expect someone as strong as Brother Gong to be killed by a junior. Even if he's dead, there's still no news of Ding Ming, and the Chancellor is nowhere to be found. Ding Ming said, but this doesn't affect your battle plan. Ross sighed even harder. It's not like that. The fake Chancellor was originally cooperating with the plan, but after he came back, he changed. Ding Ming frowned. What changed? Ross said, it's like he's become a different person. He doesn't care about government affairs at all. Instead, he's passionate about attending all kinds of public events. When the Chancellor's wife was injured by Ding Ming, we could still understand it as him helping her recover. However, after she recovered last year, he either stayed at home or went to the Apocalypse headquarters every day. Ding Ming suddenly had an idea. Back then, when Yang had determined that the fake Chancellor was that old classmate of his judgment was probably accurate. This open trade conference was probably organized by the few of you, right? Ding Ming asked again. Ross nodded. Once the decree is passed, he has to sign it and take effect. Moreover, the large organizations and forces in the Federation will definitely cooperate with the Empire. When the time comes, we'll have another chance. Ding Ming could understand this train of thought. If the top organizations in the Federal Empire work together, from a financial point of view, the financial resources of both sides would be combined. If the few of them played some dirty tricks, they could swallow up several large organizations in the Federal Empire in one go. Their financial resources would be guaranteed to a certain extent. However, this was all too idealistic because the first person to be lured over was the transit string. It was hard to say who would eat who. Ding Ming suddenly understood why Guan Xinxing did not participate in the negotiations between these organizations. It was because he clearly saw the dangers of the world. His own children were not as important as money. Money was the most practical thing. Ding Ming said, you guys don't have a chance at all. Instead, you're old and foolish. Ross was stunned. Why? Ding Ming said seriously. Who's the fake Chancellor? Who's the real boss of the Hidden Front? What's the composition of the Hidden Front? I'm guessing that you old fogies don't know anything about this. You've lived for hundreds of years and have seen a lot of things. To think that you would choose to work with the hidden front. How stupid is that? It's fine if you've already made a mistake, but you're going to make up for it with even bigger mistakes. Do you think nothing will happen? Ross fell silent. Ding Meng's words had completely hit the nail on the head. In the end, the hidden front had something on them. The hidden front then threw out Gong Ping as bait to make them think that they could really carry out their so-called great plans. In fact, it was all nonsense. This was mainly because these old fogies have been fighting for their entire lives. They were indeed capable on the battlefield, but when it came to political strategy, they were pure rookies. Even a layman like Ding Meng could see more clearly than them. They were indeed old and foolish. Ding Meng said again, but at least you have some awareness. You know that something is wrong. It's not too late for you to turn back now. Ross said, what do you want me to do? I think the best thing for you to do is to quickly admit your mistake and resign. That way, you might still be able to get away. Ding Meng placed the wine glass in front of him and carefully observed the red wine inside. But I know you won't do that, because it's too difficult for you to voluntarily give up such a high position and a life of luxury. Ross fell silent. Ding Meng had hit the nail on the head again. Ding Meng sneered. You'd better pray that when Yang and Ding Meng are dead, if either of them is still alive, they'll come looking for you sooner or later. When that time comes, none of you will be able to escape. Ross probed, but they've already died in the fertile chalk galaxy, haven't they? Ding Meng said, whether they're dead or not, I'm not sure, but they won't die so easily. You should know better than I do. A layer of cold sweat appeared on Ross' head again. The other party was right. How could war god level experts like Wen Yang and Ding Meng die so easily? This was especially true for Wen Yang. Although the Chancellor seemed like an easygoing person when he was alive, he was actually very tough. He rarely listened to the voices of those who opposed him, let alone betrayal. That was something he absolutely could not tolerate. Ross pondered and said, can you let me know who you are? Ding Meng put down the glass and slowly stood up. Do you really want to know? Ross immediately raised his guard. He was very curious about the person in front of him, mainly because he was surprised that the other party knew so much about the inside story. He suspected that this person was someone from Wen Yang's faction. The Chancellor always liked to surprise people. Ross braced himself and said, if you can leave your name behind, I'll be able to convince the others. Ding Meng said, all right, I can tell you. When he said the word all right, he was already behind Ross. He suddenly slashed down with his palm. This movement wasn't fast, and Ross was able to react in time. He instinctively raised his palms to block. However, Ding Meng's move was actually a feint. Ding Meng's palm grabbed Ross' wrist like a bolt of lightning and twisted it. Ross' expression also twisted. He felt a powerful force that he had never seen before seal his entire body, including the origin points in his body. Previously, he had been shocked by Ding Meng's unknown strength, but now he felt it for himself. He couldn't believe that the Norse Empire had someone so terrifyingly strong that he, a war god general, could be sealed in a single move. Ding Meng's emotionless voice came from above. It seems like you're still holding on to hope. If you don't suffer a little, you won't have any fear. Ross could already feel a great danger descending upon him. He instinctively wanted to struggle, but his body couldn't move at all. Chapter 869. At this moment, Ross's experience was exactly the same as Ding Meng's in the land of entropy. All the origin points in his body were spontaneously activated and started to spin crazily. A huge amount of origin energy was continuously leaking out like a broken dam. This was the diamond star fusing art that had been modified by the sovereign's imprint. It was a divine technique that could instantly absorb other people's origin energy for his own use. Several vortexes of nothingness appeared around Ross's body. Streams of pure white energy were sucked into the vortexes. It was as strange and terrifying as a black hole swallowing light. "What are you doing to me?" Ross shouted in horror. No one answered him because he suddenly felt his body go limp and his whole body collapse on the bed. Ding Meng was no longer in the room. At this time, he was shocked to find that all the origin points in his body had not only shrunk by more than half, but they had also been imprisoned by a large number of external origin points. He circulated his origin energy and used his perception. Then, he felt as if he had fallen into hell. The origin energy in his body had been reduced to the level of an advanced warlord. It was equivalent to Ding Meng sucking away all 30 billion of his origin energy points, leaving 90 million for himself. The difference between 30 billion and 90 million was the difference between a warlord and a warlord. Ross's mind went blank. In his mind, he was now equivalent to a dead man. Perhaps death was a good thing, as it would end all troubles. After what seemed like a century, Ross got out of bed as if he had just woken up from a dream. He rushed to the balcony and grabbed the wristband. The voice communication was quickly connected. Roger's voice came from the wristband. "Dad, I'm in Shindu." Ross calmed down and said, "Jack, come back quickly." Roger's voice sounded a little unhappy. "Dad, I just invited Manager Ling of the Starbow Group. We're discussing something." Ross impatiently interrupted him. "Don't talk. Let the others talk about this. What you need to do now is to come back quickly." Roger was silent on the other end. He was probably shocked by the sudden order, but he didn't dare to disobey his father. "Okay, I got it." Turning off the wristwatch, Ross was still in a state of extreme fear. He still did not know who the mysterious expert he had encountered that night was, but he was almost certain that it was one Yang's men. Once the real head of state returned to the capital, he would definitely launch a merciless counterattack against those who had participated in the Hidden Front's conspiracy. Thinking of this, his hand was about to reach for the wristband again, but halfway through, he chickened out again. The mysterious master had spared his life, which was a great blessing. Just as the man had said, if he still thought he was lucky enough to pass the message to others, then he would really be digging his own grave. This bowl of noodles looked particularly attractive under the dim yellow streetlights. Luo Wanchu looked at the price list. 7-star coins and 2 taels. "Your noodles aren't cheap either." "Damn," he suddenly cried out in alarm. Ding Meng had already found a table with 2 bowls of noodles and was slurping them down. Looking at the way he was eating, he didn't have any extra energy to greet the two of them. Luo Wanchu quickly rushed to the stove. "Boss, 2 taels of noodles." "Oh no, 3 taels of noodles. Don't put onions or coriander. Cook them harder." The 3 of them quickly ate. The slurping sounds were endless. In the end, Luo Wanchu ate half a caddy of noodles. Zhong Lifeng ate a stainless steel bowl, and Ding Meng ate 10 big bowls by himself. He really didn't want to shock the world. Otherwise, he would have no problem eating 1,000 bowls of noodles like this. He could directly finish the noodle shop stock. After putting down his chopsticks in satisfaction, Ding Meng sighed and said, "Brother Zhong, I didn't expect you to also come from the slums." He was indeed a little emotional because he could see that Zhong Lifeng was more frugal. Although he was an employee of a large corporation, how could those people come to the underground city to eat? Zhong Lifeng chuckled. "Brother Zhu, you're too polite. Don't you also come from such a background?" Ding Meng asked curiously. "You can tell." Zhong Lifeng stared at Ding Meng's right hand. "Brother Zhu, the calluses on your wrist aren't thin, and it's even a little black. You must have done a lot of hard work in the past, right?" Ancestral Gragon was indeed from a poor background. There was no need to hide this. Ding Meng also stared at his wrist. How did Brother Zhong get to Feng Yin Group? Zhong Lifeng smiled and said, "I was lucky. I only applied to be a salesperson of Feng Yin Group 2 years ago." Luo Anshu said, "Strictly speaking, the 3 of us are all business people. I hope that we can successfully invite Manager Ling to the headquarters tomorrow. That would be great." Hearing this, Zhong Lifeng was a little unhappy. "The headquarters sent us such a difficult task. Your apocalypse should let your immediate superior come." Luo Anshu scratched his head and said, "I'll ask the boss tomorrow and see if he goes to the treasure pavilion." Ding Meng asked meaningfully, "Then what if he doesn't come?" Luo, Anshu said. Then I'll have to return to the Apocalypse building. Hearing these words, Ding Meng and Zhong Lifeng suddenly looked at each other. Zhong Lifeng smiled. Brother Luo, Brother Zhu, I think we should just stay in the car for the night. Anyway, we'll reach the southern city's business district from here. Ding Meng nodded. This is my first time going to the Treasure Pavilion. Tomorrow will definitely be an exciting day. Mo Xiao Xiao quickly called over another staff member and paid the money on the spot. The group continued to walk around the exhibition hall, and Qi Yuan stopped in front of another booth. Ding Meng now had an idea. Qi Yuan and Mo Xiao Xiao must have been here beforehand to check out the place. Their goal was very clear. They already had their eyes on these items and were only waiting for Ji Qinxue to determine their value. This time, a cylindrical crystal vessel was placed on the display stand. It was soaked in a transparent liquid, and within the liquid, there was a rainbow-colored branch that looked like seaweed. It emitted a moving light, soft, and was extremely beautiful. The price on the screen was actually 6 million star coins. After looking at it for a long time, Ji Qinxue suddenly turned his head. Manager Ling, can you tell what this is? Transit String smiled. If I'm not wrong, this should be the frogman's green light fiber. It's a very mysterious material. It's extremely flexible and resistant to fire and water, and can fuse with all kinds of metals. It was taken from the frogman's commander. When the surrounding people heard this, their eyes widened. This thing was actually so rare. No wonder the price was so high. 6 million star coins to buy green light fiber was simply too worth it. Ji Qinxue revealed a look of admiration. Manager Ling is indeed an authority. Ding Meng, on the other hand, was secretly amused. It wasn't strange that the transit string knew this. The Federation's technology was much more advanced than the Empire's, and Xinghong Xinghao was also an expert in this field. It was normal for the transit string to know the word green light. Just as Mo Xiao Xiao was calling the staff member again, Ding Meng sighed. If you want to buy it to forge armor or weapons, this green light won't be suitable. His voice wasn't loud, but everyone heard it clearly. Qi Yuan immediately turned his head and looked at Ding Meng with a strange gaze. There was no place for ancestral Gragon to speak in this place, but seeing that Ji Qinxue had invited Ding Meng here, he couldn't refute. Ji Qinxue's beautiful eyes flashed. Ancestral Gragon has been active in outer space for many years, and he has many friends. I'm sure he's seen more things than we have. These words were simply drawing hatred for Ding Meng. What would the surrounding people think? Ji Qinxue was the authority of the Appraisal Association. Was this brat trying to overthrow her? Or was he trying to make his presence known? Ding Meng replied humbly, I wouldn't dare. I only know a little. Ji Qinxue smiled and said, Mr. Zhu, if you have any opinions, feel free to say them. Mr. Fong won't blame you. After all, the Appraisal Association is meant to identify more unknown items. Ding Meng looked at the branch soaked in the container and said calmly, This thing isn't green light. Why do you say that? The transit string was surprised. As soon as she saw Ji Qinxue, Zhong Yalan, who was at the door, smiled happily. Qinxue, long time no see. Ji Qinxue also smiled brightly. Sister Lin, I've been wondering why I haven't seen you for so many months. It turns out that you're living like a god in this place. Zhong Yalan smiled. It's just healing. It's not as happy as you think. Ji Qinxue asked with concern. How's your recovery? Zhong Yalan said, It's healed. With Yang's help, my realm has improved a lot. It was a pity that Ding Meng could not use his telekinesis vision. Otherwise, he would definitely be able to see through Zhong Yalan. However, his perception was blocked because Zhong Yalan's black dress seemed to have some kind of faint energy barrier attached to it. Ordinary perception could not penetrate it at all. After a round of introductions, Zhong Yalan maintained a very warm attitude towards the transit string. Although she was not so warm towards ancestral Graygon, she still maintained enough etiquette. Ding Meng felt very strange. His impression of Zhong Yalan was not like this. Zhong Yalan seemed to have changed into a different person. She was as happy as a little bird, but he was sure that this Zhong Yalan was definitely not a fake. The living room on the first floor was quite spacious. There were no modern technological facilities, only ordinary furnishings. Although it looked simple, every piece was extremely exquisite. They were all custom-made with the best quality Nuwa starwood. It was truly low-key and luxurious. The weather and time changes in the subspace were completely synchronized with the outside world. The sky was slowly darkening. Looking out from a window, there were already bright stars rising on the horizon. Night was coming soon. The three pleasing beauties stood together and chatted happily. The topic was also some common women's fashion. Ding Meng could only sit on the sofa obediently. What he needed to do now was to wait patiently. However, after listening carefully for a while, he still had some clues. This was because he still had some understanding of Zhong Yalan from Wen Yang's description. This Apocalypse CEO's beloved daughter was especially fond of ancient weapons and rare treasures. Then, it made sense that Qi Yuan and Mo Xiao would go to the appraisal meeting. It must be because of Zhong Yalan's hobby. Although this place was like a paradise, humans were social animals. They could not stand loneliness and would always find something fun to pass the time. It was already dinner time, but there was no AI butler robot cooking here. The kitchen was also empty. Zhong Yalan smiled. Let's wait for Aiyang to come back for dinner. His cooking skills are far better than mine. President Wen knows how to cook? Ji Qinxue was a little surprised. In her impression, the empire's ruler was very busy every day. How would he have the time and energy to cook for his family? If someone found out that your husband was an imposter, it would be strange if your husband didn't kill that person. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.